I'd like to call the Village Departmental meeting to order. If you would stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everyone, and welcome to everyone who's watching at home. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Present.
Trustee Mariscal? Present. Trustee Kazam?
Present.
Trustee Gett?
Present.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Present.
Trustee DeVore?
Present.
All right, it's nice to have everyone here tonight, so again, welcome. We would be at item 4, approval of minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting on September 17, 2019, and the departmental meeting on Tuesday, October 1st, 2019. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Any questions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving both sets of those minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Item 5, Madam Clerk, is there any correspondence?
There are. I have 2 letters. The first is a thank you letter received from Miss Cindy Bertino of the Restore the Shaft Committee. Many thanks for your support. This is addressed to Mr. Casey. Many thanks for your support of the Restore the Shaft project in Springdale Cemetery. Please know how much you helped and how much we appreciate it. Many thanks again. The second letter I have, let's see, comes from the Chief of Police of the City of Peoria to the Village of Peoria Heights. Mr. Village Administrator, I would like to personally commend your police and fire departments for the professionalism they displayed the morning of September 13th, 2019, when my son's apartment caught on fire. If it was not for the fire department's quick response and high level of training, the whole building would have been lost. When I was first notified of the incident, I didn't know what to expect. Jacob just said that he was told his apartment was on fire. He was out of town and had no idea how bad it was. As I was driving up to the scene and saw all of the fire apparatuses, I knew it was bad. I stopped and talked to Officer Bill Schweitzer, who was blocking traffic. Officer Schweitzer was compassionate when he learned it was my son's apartment. Officer Schweitzer directed me where to go and said Sergeant Jeremiah Lotz was monitoring the scene. As I walked up to the scene and saw the damage, my heart dropped because I knew that Jacob had just lost everything he owned and didn't even know it. I located Sergeant Lotz and talked to him about the incident. Sergeant Lotz explained that when he first arrived on scene, he found the apartment secure, therefore he forced entry and checked for people inside. Sergeant Lotz had no idea the impact that had on me. To think that Sergeant Lotz took immediate action and put his life at risk to possibly save my son and possibly my grandson meant so much to me. Due to Sergeant Lotz's actions, my son's cat did survive. This cat means more to my son than any of his personal belongings. After talking to Sergeant Lotz, I talked to Chief Walters. Chief Walters took the time to talk to me and explain what he knew. The professional courtesy he showed meant so much to me. It made dealing with the tragic incident a little easier. I also appreciated the way he continued to communicate with me while I was on scene. Just when I thought he exceeded my expectations to the fullest, he took it to another level. Chief Walters took time out of his day on Saturday morning and called Jacob to see how he was doing. He even took time to talk to me about the incident. Words cannot explain what that meant to me. The Village of Peoria Heights is fortunate to have professionals such as Chief Walters and Sergeant Lotz working for your community. The actions of your police and fire department reflect positively on the Village of Peoria Heights. It also reflects positively on you as the Village Administrator/Chief of Police. Please accept my gratitude in your capacity of the Village Administrator/Chief of Police, and please pass on my gratitude to Chief Walters. Sincerely, Lauren Marion III, Chief of Police, City of Peoria Heights. City of Peoria. That's all the correspondence, Mayor.
Okay, and again, thanks to both police and fire for an excellent job on that, and Public Works for helping out on the Springdale ceremony as well. So we'll move on to comments from the audience. Comments from the audience are open. If you'd like to come up and address the board, please give us your name and address, please, and you have 5 minutes. Welcome.
My name is Eric Thurman, member of the Peoria Heights VFW Post 2602. Mr. Mayor, trustees, we are here again to ask for your attention to the flooding issue beyond the upper Peoria Heights area. We have asked for your help to resolve this issue in the past, only to get a "we'll get back to you" reply. No replies have made it This issue started years ago. We did everything we could to deal with the situation. Then the village had side street flooding issues. The resolution then was to get it down to the ravine. The village tried to install a catch basin to slow the water at that time, but it failed. It was like pouring 1.5 gallons of water in a 1-gallon bucket. Then as development increased, the infrastructure was upgraded on top of the hill, but nothing was done below. Now, all storm drain water from Glen Avenue and south are dumping into our parking lot. It's like dumping 5 gallons plus of water into that same 1-gallon bucket. Peoria upgraded their side of the street, and I am certain your street department seen the upgrade, yet it didn't trigger anyone's mind that the lower part of Peoria Heights needed upgraded. The storm drain that runs through our parking lot has been videoed by Illinois Rural Water Association and shows it is significantly debilitated. The size of the old drain is not sufficient for the amount of water you are directing towards it. We have spent money paying employees to help clean up flooding inside our building. We cannot freely upgrade the walls of our building, fearing the disturbance of mold. Our parking lot is suffering from the water washing away dirt from below the surface. We have seen water shoot up to approximately 2 feet out of the drains. This is not only damaging our property, it's damaging our business. It keeps us from raising funds to support veteran programs and local scholarships. It prevents veterans from enjoying an elite club for which their sacrifice entitles them to a safe place. This is also a safety issue, as our members are older and do not deserve to have to trample through ankle-deep water to get away from the everyday grind. All of our members fought battles on foreign soil. We never thought we'd fight a battle in our own backyard. Please do what is right and finish engineering the storm drain on the lower part of Peoria Heights. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight, sir. I personally have not been contacted for, good gosh, well over a year before the catch basin was installed, so I'm happy to meet with you anytime, but we have this on the agenda later on for discussion. Do you want to wait till later to respond, or would you like to respond now?
Let's wait till later.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, public comment still open. Anyone else? Welcome, Mr. Becker. Give your name and address.
My name is Jim Becker. I reside at 2015 Grandview Terrace in Peoria Heights. I've resided there for approximately 43 years. Thank you for allowing us to address the board tonight, and the reason for wanting to do it at this time is an item on the agenda for tonight's discussion, and that has to do with fire protection on our street. At present, there is no fire protection for the 6 houses located on the lower portion of Grandview Terrace. The basic problems are as follows. Number one, there's only one fire hydrant at the corner of Route 29 and Riverview Court, and that hydrant is placed there to service Riverview Court. Number two, the only fire hydrant that is on the upper portion of Grandview Terrace is on the other side of 2 residences that both have gated houses and therefore not available for use for any of the houses located on the lower portion of Grandview Terrace. Number 3, the roadway is permanently blocked between the upper and lower portion of Grandview Terrace. There is no vehicular traffic that can get through, thus no fire protection from above. Number 4, all of the Peoria Heights fire equipment is too large to reach any of our homes. Number 5, if the hydrant on Route 29 was used, even if they could get to our homes, the water pressure would be far too low to do any effective fire prevention or removal. We desperately need the board's assistance I've been in conversation with both Trustee Weisenberg and Chief Walters concerning this issue, and thank you very much for putting it on the agenda for tonight. Have something to pass around to the board. It's a layout to give you an idea of what we're talking about, of the entire area and the street, and possibly you can look at it during the discussion of.
Jim, thanks for being here tonight. This was an issue I was not aware of, but Trustee Weisenberg, I know, has already done a lot of work on this, so I hope you can stay around for that discussion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're still, public comment's still open. Going once, going twice. Public comment is closed. On to old business. We have one item. It's administration, Trustee Gett. It's an action item, approval of a lease agreement by and between the Village of Peoria Heights and the KDB Group LLC for property located at 4600-4602 Galena Road. Trustee Gett, I'd ask for a motion to approve this.
I make a motion to approve.
And a second, please.
Second.
Okay, go ahead, Trustee Gett.
I'm going to yield to Administrator here and take care of it all. I've been thinking.
All right. Thanks, Trustee Gett. As previously discussed last month, Trustee Weisenberger brought up a couple issues for discussion that I think the council agreed on we wanted to see changed. We did pass that on to council at the time, and I'm going to turn this over to Mark and to kind of touch on the two issues that were addressed. Other than that, the agreement is the same as proposed last month.
My recollection is that the two issues that you wanted me to address, and it's been some time since I revised the lease, but maintenance is completely on the tenant. So landlord, this is a lease that in property lingo we would call triple net. In other words, the tenant is paying, now there are no taxes, and it depends, on what type of use they ultimately make of it. There may be property taxes, but all maintenance, all taxes, all insurance, any improvements that need to be made is all completely on the tenant. And then on the back end, at the end of the lease, the tenant has to remove all of the personal property structures, not, if there's any permanent improvements that are approved, those would stay. But anything, amusement rides, things of that nature, all have to be removed by the tenant at the end of the lease.
Does that satisfy your concern with Trustee Weiser? Okay. Greg Berkland, if you don't mind, coming up and making a few remarks, and I know there might be some new people here. You've made a presentation in the past, but if you would tell everyone about your intentions for the Alfresco site and how you're coming along.
Sure. Greg Berkland with the KDB Group. We've been looking at this property for probably the last 8+ months with our vision of turning into a trout farm with streams. Not a trout farm, but a trout pond. That's another project I'm working on, sorry. And trying to bring more youth to the lower part of Galena Road. Again, we're trying to bring our youth out there, teach them how to fly fish, giving them access to that. I've been working with Illinois Department of Natural Resources. I've been working with IDOT. I've been working with Corps of Engineers, just on a real low level, nothing real in depth, just kind of getting their take on this and getting their buy-in. And so far, everything's going extremely well. They're all very excited about what we want to do here. My next task would be the railroad and working with them also. So once while I was getting ready to do some not soil sampling, but some water testing down there, we wanted to kind of punch through the aquifer, get down to the San Cody, which is probably maybe 10 to 15 feet below the surface, and just kind of show everybody what the water quality is, the temperature of the water. It's always a constant 52 degrees, but we had that huge downpour of rain, so it kind of pushed me back. Actually, it's pushed me back about a month and a half. So once we get a little bit lower levels out there, we'll go through it and actually get some samples. So we're still moving along. We just have to work with the different organizations that are out there, making sure that we're doing everything correctly and everyone's happy with what we're doing.
Greg, I know you have a special mission to try and provide a top-notch facility to attract young people and provide recreation for them. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. you've got a great asset. That is a San Quote aquifer that has been here for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It's the cleanest water that's around, and our goal is to get through that aquifer, pump out that clean water, put it into the streams, make natural streams for our children to play in. It's clean water, throw rocks, be kids, and then learn also how to fly fish down there too, or even just a regular pole fish. This area will probably about 3 acres in size as far as the fishing. We're going to close out the inlet there, so that way we can keep the natural, fresh, clean water in there without the Illinois River kind of intruding into there. Again, this isn't going to be a moneymaker for us. We're not doing it to make money, obviously. It's just to bring more awareness to Peoria Heights and get people more involved and get their families to another destination to enjoy the natural resources we have. So that's why we're doing it. It's not a moneymaker. But Kim's all about community and working with families and having a great area for your kids to grow up, and I think this is going to be a phenomenal place to have your kids be kids.
So we thought originally this would be a project maybe further down the road, but when the governor was here to announce that the Heights would receive $68.5 million to improve Galena Road, there was a sense of urgency to move this forward.
Exactly. Once we got the word, because this has been on our radar for probably the last 8 months, and when Pretzker decided to spend that $68 million, it moved me and our group, Farnsworth, and our architects and landscaping architects in full press. So we got completely laid out as far as our vision and what we want to do. So now the steps are to get approval from the trustees here, and that once that's completed, then it really. The hard work starts, working with IDOT, working with Illinois Department of Natural Resources, working with Corps of Engineers, working with the railroad, and also the city too.
Greg, thanks for being here tonight. Before I open it up to questions from the trustees, Council, this is important because I believe the village retains ownership and gets a lot of benefit, but also within the lease, it permits the village to use the property a few times a year. Would you explain that, please?
Sure. We retain the right to use this for public functions with, cooperating, with Kim and KDB Group on scheduling. But the concept built into the lease is that this really is a public venue. They can have private affairs there, but it's really a public venue. And then the village gets to use the venue several times a year just by coordinating with KDB Group. So again, and the theme being that it's really for the public.
Thank you. So let's open it up for questions. Go ahead, Trustee Weisenberg.
Sure. When you say the village can use it for public functions, are we talking like a Heights Day where Heights families would be able to attend at no cost?
That could be one of the purposes. So I don't know that we really thought that through yet, but anything that would...
Yeah, I'd love to have all of your ideas and thoughts and bring them forward for sure. We're definitely pro-Heights, so we'd love to do that.
That's great.
If you stop and think about it, all the pop-up retail shops, who knows what could happen down there? It'd be a lot of fun. And it's going to be so beautiful. Seeing the Illinois River and the natural waterways there, we could have mini concerts out there possibly, even, like little pop-up concerts. I'm just thinking outside the box. But yeah, I'm definitely opening to suggestions.
Well, that's a place down there that hasn't been utilized fully. And here we got an opportunity with the grant and to slow things down and get the trail going through there. We could, you got an attraction down there, well, businesses want to follow the attraction, so.
Correct.
I think it's a great idea. We're fortunate that we got this, and I think we need to run with it.
Thank you.
I agree. I don't know if anyone's ever visited the Chicago River Walk, but this is a project that started in 2005 and today is unbelievable. There's opportunity for retail, there's opportunity for restaurants, there's opportunity for recreation with kayaking, boating, maybe potentially doing boating across the river to another site. So it's really amazing, and thank you for opening this opportunity up for the Heights and for the entire community.
I would like to make one thing be known is that the Herman Associates across the street, they are staying in place. They are not moving. I just want to make that clear to everyone that they are actually, could be a working partner with us. We've looked at other, like you had said, other opportunities over there as far as small shops or even maybe a living quarters over there as far as apartments. I mean, it's totally wide open what can happen on that site also.
Yeah, has there been any discussions on what the cost of admission would be?
It's not going to be much, if there is going to be a cost.
5, 10?
Might not even be a cost. I mean, the thing I can only see is maybe if we have like a rental for kayaks, if people want to learn how to kayak, maybe, we'll have a kayak concession. But, at this juncture, we haven't even thought of as far as admission fees or anything else like that. I have talked with Chief Sutton as far as, kind of policing the area and closing it off after hours, maybe like at 8 o'clock, so that way there's no, access to the property, so. But,
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for example, what I understand is, this is really an opening the door for opportunity for other small businesses in our area to be created. So to answer a question like that, maybe I'm incorrect about this, but other businesses might rent property from you, but their business would be selling concessions or selling, renting kayaks and that type of thing. So in that case, maybe having weddings down there, maybe there's a pavilion. So
exactly.
I think it would be difficult to assess exactly what those prices are at this point, but the real opportunity is opening the door for other businesses in our community to be created.
Exactly.
I lived in Omaha for a few years, and they took essentially 3 blocks of downtown, tore down the old buildings that weren't doing anything, and they put in a Central Park Mall. And so it starts at the top of one part, and it flows on down, and the geese come down, and they got the koi fish in there. People just come. It draws people downtown, and these buildings that were vacant, well, people moved in and put it in a business, and because people were drawn to this. And I think with you doing this, another example is down in St. Louis there along the river. I can't think of the name of it.
St. Charles by chance?
Huh?
The Cleves Landing?
Yeah, the landing. They seen what they had. They, use of a better term, I can't think of, exploited it, whatever, advertised it, cleaned it up, made it look nice, drew people down there, and it helped out down there. And this is a nice shot in the arm for the Heights.
Especially the lower section. Everything's getting attention up here. It's nice to put it down below.
There's never been any development down there.
Correct.
I lived here, except for 3 years in Omaha. I lived here my entire life, and it's all been up here. We had Paps. Well, Paps left, and wait a minute, what are we doing to do now? But this is really good, especially for the people down below the hill, because you have development down there, and they're not going to have to. Hopefully, we can get some kind of a store or something down there, so they don't have to run up above the hill every time. This is and also the benefit for the youth in this area, not just Peoria Heights, but all around. We can draw people from Chillicothe. I have people I work with that live in Chillicothe, live in Mapleton and all, and they're talking about this stuff in the Heights, and they're asking me about it, and I said, pay attention, because we're not going to just stick our nose up to people. We want you to come up here and.
Yeah.
Part of me wants to say, hi, I do tell them, we can come on up, enjoy what we got going up here, and spend your money here. This is a great deal.
Exactly.
Sorry, I was rambling.
Anyone else? Are we ready to vote?
I would just ask that we be sensitive to maybe the noise level. I know you'd mentioned possibly concerts, or I grew up on 29. In some ways, it's kind of a different town. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. You wouldn't know that if you lived down there.
It's a different location.
And I've had several residents reach out that they like their little sanctuary down there. So as we look towards development, we need to be sensitive to that, because a lot of people like living down there because it's not above the hill.
That's a very good point.
On this project,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, moving forward, we should be sensitive of that. A lot of people like it that way. I've recently moved above the hill, but my heart is still below the hill.
I'll just say, working with the KDB group in the last year, they're very sensitive to the community's needs, and they're very open to listen to suggestions, so I'm pretty confident that we can work through that, but that is a good point. Trustee Weisenberg.
And I'm sure whatever concerts it might have, it's not going to be a headbangers ball down there.
No.
I mean, so, like I said, I'm still real excited about it.
Well, and council, there are protections as in the lease for, we are the landlord and we have protections
Yes.
built in?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can kick us out.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
All right, that passes.
Thank you all. I appreciate your vote of confidence in us. Thank you.
That's great.
Okay, on to new business. The first is an action item also. It's approval of a memorial water hydrant to be placed inside Tower Park in memory of Irene Hassenstein. And Tom, I believe, is here tonight, but I would ask Trustee Carter for a motion to approve this. So we get it on the floor.
I make a motion to approve.
And do I have a second?
A second.
Tom, I thought I saw you out there. Welcome. And Mike, you and Dave may want to chime in on this, but come on up, Tom, and tell us a little bit about your idea. So Mrs. Hassenstein, Tom's mother, those of us who are old enough to remember, painted literally all the fire hydrants in Peoria Heights at one time. It was a really, really cool concept, and we were all at that time excited about that. So you and I have had some talks over the last couple of months about how to honor your mother. So Tom, welcome.
Yeah, I'm just basically following your lead, and then an associate of yours, Ken McIntyre, who I grew up with, that you guys approached me about putting in a memorial hydrant. And from the understanding of the discussion we had, is you folks would provide the hydrant and put it in place, and then Kenny McIntyre, who's also an associate of Mayor Phelan's, will paint it, and his painting capabilities are comparable to my mother's. And I think they presented to you already. We were looking for an idea on what to do, and by luck, I found in one of the Heights yearbooks about 2 weeks ago a Patriot, so they go along with the Heights theme. Yeah, it's really kind of a cool thing. I mean, it really wasn't cool in 1977 when I was in high school. My mom was painting fire hydrants all over the Heights, but now it's kind of cool 40
Well, we
years
thought
later.
it was. We thought it was. Yeah, I mean,
But anyway, it was just,
Dave, you want to take a seat up here, then you can respond to it. But go ahead, Tom, is there anything else?
no, it's just basically, as I said, what we had discussed, Dave and I and Mike Casey and yourself, and I think that the police chief was going to be involved, but he probably overheard, is that you would provide the hydrant, mount it, then Kenny, I would prime it, Kenny would paint it with the Patriot theme, and I think you have a copy of that. And then I came up with just, and you guys can help me with it, I really have not thought this out very well, just kind of a generic. You said I would provide the memorial stone, which I went out to Otten and Chillicothe that does memorial stones, and they would inscribe a little picture of her face, and beside it I came up with this just haphazardly. Irene was a local artist, Irene Hassenstein was a local artist that painted the fire hydrants in Peoria Heights in the 1970s. And I decided that that was probably about as elaborate as it needs to get. The only 3 words I'm really concerned about are Irene D. Hassenstein. You can change it to whatever you think, and then I'll pay for the memorial, which is going to be $300 or $400. And I think that as soon as you have it mounted, I'll prime it and Kenny will paint it, and we'll get the stone
And I can
in
vouch
place.
for Kenny Mack. He does great work.
Oh, Kenny has been a friend of mine for almost 45 years, and he's a comparable artist to my mother.
Dave?
Yeah, so in your packet, you got a picture of the fire hydrant from the high school back in '76. You have a picture of the rock, which Tom is going to get. And then the last picture in the packet is where Mike and I, we walked around Tower Park and decided that this, in our opinion, this would be the best place for it. It's actually right out to Tom's left shoulder. There's 2 recycle bins, and it would be right there at the edge of the sidewalk facing south. In our meeting, we talked about where the best place to put it in Peoria Heights would be, and as far as foot traffic and people to see it, we thought Tower Park would be the best place for it. It'll be on a 2-foot wide by 4-foot long concrete base, the hydrant and the rock. The hydrant will be donated by the water department. Actually, it worked out perfect. We had a hydrant that was hit by a vehicle and taken out of service. So it worked out perfect that this happened at the same time. So the hydrant will be donated, no charge to the village. We are going to put the concrete pad in, the Public Works Department. Yeah, that's.
Tom, you said it was, not too much fun for you, but I can tell you what, your friends and your classmates, we had a blast razzing you guys about your mom painting that. And I think this is great. I mean, that's is part of what we grew up with. Your mother walked the whole Heights and painted all this stuff, and I just think it's great. It's a great honor for her and stuff. And
Thanks, Jeff.
like I said,
I would agree. I would say
your friends and your classmates, we, especially me, had a great time razzing you about it. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jeff.
something I might consider adding to that stone or that memorial is that she brought joy to many, many children, because being a young person in the 70s, I remember very vividly walking through Peoria Heights and seeing all the different hydrants painted in different themes, and so it was really very innovative at that time, and it really goes to show you what a grassroots effort can do for a community and for pride. So
I think she had Mayor Pitzel's support, and then eventually, after she did about 5 or 10 of them, Mayor Pitzel figured a way that the Heights paid for the paint, and she ended up doing 89 hydrants at one time. And I know it worked out really nice. I mean, it was. And then she got, I think, Ray made her Citizen of the Year or something like that after she finished it, just because. And then Ray had one down at his yard because he liked it so much. Sorry, I'm not in all the formalities. I'm used to just kind of being at home right now watching TV.
Mayor Phelan, I do have one more thing, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Before you guys vote. I've had a couple people reach out to me and ask me about painting the fire hydrants in their yards. We painted the fire hydrants this past summer. We had a summer help kid from the high school named Sean, who is a fantastic artist, and he painted those things and they look smooth, and that drew interest from others. So the fire hydrants, I don't mind that people paint them, but they have to be painted the colors that they currently are. The tops of the hydrants, they're either red, orange, or green, and those are, orange, yellow, and red, I believe. Anyways, those colors signify gallons per minute. So we can't have somebody painting a fire hydrant that's not. So.
Thank you, and I didn't know that until just recently.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to paint a fire hydrant in their yard, they need to contact the water department, and I don't have a problem with it. We just need to know that you're going to paint it, and it has to be painted the same color that it currently is.
Just don't paint the top of the fire hydrant?
Well, if you're going to paint the top, you want to paint the whole thing, but yeah.
No, but I'm saying, though, don't change the color
Right,
of the top
well,
of the fire
yeah,
hydrant.
they all should be red, the bodies are red, the tops are the different colors, it has to be that exact same color.
but they can't be, like, it has to be those solid colors. It's
Yes.
not a motif.
Yeah.
It's not painted as a...
Right, and we don't want, this was a great thing, the hydrant that's going to be out here obviously is going to be out of service. We don't want fire hydrants that are in service painted.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That might spur some interest in doing so, but we want to approve any other hydrants in service that would be painted.
Well, the flexible thing also about doing this memorial is you can paint it to something else. You can make it a woodpecker. You can make it, you can have some local artist from the high school come up and repaint it if it gets a little tattered and drift away from the Patriot or whatever you guys want to do. I mean, it's very flexible.
A question for Dave. Is it the objective to paint them all at some point?
Yeah, we have, how many fire hydrants do we have, Mr. Goff?
256.
256. We painted probably this summer, we painted maybe 20, so it would take a long time. And we did it as time allowed. We found out that he was so great at it. He was efficient and he was smooth, so his last month of work here, that's all he did was painted. We got all the ones on the main roads painted this past summer. So
They look really nice.
yeah, I mean, I would love to have them all painted, but it would be a full-time summer job, no doubt.
Okay, anyone else?
Next year.
Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Actually, I'd like to make a comment. Can we make sure that it gets painted exactly the way that this is? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kenny-
I don't want to
Kenny plans on
overturn. I want
painting
exactly
exactly
the way
like that.
Irene painted this one, so.
Kenny plans to, I mean, Kenny and Mayor Phelan were the kind of motivators behind this, and Kenny plans to honor her by making it for exactly. I mean-
Yeah, okay. Aye.
Trustee Mariscal?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeBoer?
Aye.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
We're on to, moving on. We'll
Okay,
get that
thanks,
taken
Mayor.
care of. Thank you, Tom.
I'm going to dismiss myself. I haven't had supper yet, so.
I'll be in contact, Tom.
Okay, next is an action item, approval of purchase for a new motor for well number 11 from Cahoy Pump Services in the amount of $18,005. Trustee Carter, I'd ask for a motion to approve that.
I make a motion.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, back to you, Trustee Carter.
Okay, so this is from my little note from last week that we didn't have the meeting. Well 11 is now refurbished, in other words.
Yep.
We've saved a lot of money doing it this way than to replace it. So this is like the last part of the money that is owed on well 11, correct? 18,000, or are we going to owe more money?
No, this will be it. Let me,
This is it, okay.
yeah, so the item in question, which is the pump motor, that was not part of the original scope of work when this rehab was planned or completed. And there's 3 pages in the packet. The first page is the estimate for this pump motor, $18,005. The second page is a picture of a well motor. If you went on the tour, that may look familiar. That's not the specific motor in question. And then the third page on the back side of that motor is a breakdown of what we have spent so far on well number 11. And like I said, this was not part of the original scope of work. So the contractor, Cahoy, they completed all the work on all the rehab on the well in the middle of September. They started the well up to test it. The motor started, and then it would not start again. And they removed the motor, took it away for inspection where it was found to be a bad motor. The estimate page, I kind of put parentheses around what they found out to be the issue was the motor stator and windings are bad. This motor was pulled and repaired in 2015, but at that point, those parts were found to be in good condition. They believe that the incoming power into the motor may be the cause of the failure, and they suggested that the incoming power be looked at before a new pump is installed. So if this is approved tonight, I plan on having that incoming power investigated or looked at before the new motor would be installed. The other thing is this $18,000 payment will need to be taken out of the water department budget. Both the infrastructure and maintenance loan are exasperated. That's the $1.5 million loan that we have. And the infrastructure and maintenance fee fund, which is the $5 a month fee that is applied to all the water bills, that is at a low enough level that we are not comfortable with pulling funds out of that. I'm going to work with Stephanie to figure out what we can cut in the water budget to make this happen. The third page shows what we have spent on the current rehab, and that is, with this $18,000 added onto that, that'll put us at about $181,000. That's the bad news. The good news is that we will have pretty much a completely new well for far less cheaper than what it would be to construct a new one. A new one right now to have engineered and construction, you're probably looking about $285,000, $300,000 range. So we're getting and they've guaranteed me this well is going to be a very good operational well for 15 to 20 years. So we're getting a new well pretty much for far less cheaper. Last thing I have is we've always been in a reactive state instead of a proactive state regarding these, in particular these wells. And it's at no fault of the previous public work directors. The main reason is the expense. As we can tell, they are not cheap to work on. And I've been working with Stephanie trying to identify the wells that need attention, and we're trying to come up with a plan to get these things, all of the 5 of these things under quality working condition.
Thank you, Dave. Very well explained. Questions, trustees?
So Dave, the power source going into there, does that have anything to do with why this pump quit working?
Yes, that's what the contractor thinks why the motor went bad is, you're saying originally?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the original problem was all underground, and that has to do with the aquifer. Our San Cody Aquifer is known for hard water, iron and manganese, and that just does a number on the casing of the well, which is underground, and then at the bottom of the well is like a cooking strainer that has holes in it, and that's where the water comes up out of the aquifer. That just gets caked with basically residue or like lime, and yeah. So that was the initial cause of the
That's what we initially fixed, right?
Yeah, yep, everything underground is basically brand new. And they went to start it up, and that's when this pump went bad.
Are they giving any kind of warranty on this
on the new one? Mm-hmm. I believe so. I don't know that. I could find that out, but I don't know. I would assume so. But I don't know if it says.
Would that rely on us putting in like a new power source in order for them
that $18,000 does not include the power. If there is a power issue, that does not include that. That's just for the motor. So that 18,000 or the power issue would be, I don't know yet because I haven't got it investigated, but that would be an extra whatever would come on top of that. Yeah. I would assume there would be a warranty on this new motor. It doesn't specify, but I can find out.
I'm just wondering if it would negate the warranty if we didn't replace the power source, if the power source was actually what was causing the motor to go bad.
Yeah, that's probably, I would think so, yeah.
So we're still looking at more than 181.
Yeah, true, yeah. Depending on what the power investigation comes into, it could be very little, it could be a lot, yeah.
So Stephanie, do we have funds that we can move around to make this so that?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Dave and I talked about this, and essentially what I had found is there are funds that we can essentially underspend on. In specific, I know that there are funds, and there's not enough solely in the, there's a line item, it's called main utilities in the waterworks, and I can look up the exact code for you later. There's about $5,000 in there. Essentially, this would be dedicating, typically we would spend this on water mains. This is obviously adjacent to that, so we'll just use this for that. There are additional funds, things like in the maintenance equipment line item, there's $5,000 there that we could find. And then I would say the remainder of it's probably gonna end up coming from equipment capital outlay. So where they might have purchased, a larger piece of equipment worth $5,000 or $10,000, they'll have to delay that until next fiscal year now.
Okay.
Dave, is this the newer well that really has never worked properly?
No. That's well 12. That's one that was engineered in 2010 and it pumps dirty water. So I use that in emergency cases only. So yeah, that's something that
next.
Yeah, that's next,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. Now, this well rehab happened because I was using it, it's been about a year ago, and it was giving up a lot of air. It was pulling air with water, and when you have air and water, it looks like milk, and we were getting a lot of complaints about like milky water, and so that's why this initial investigation and rehab started. What it was is that the strainer at the bottom was so clogged that it was having a hard time pulling water through, so it was just pulling air. So.
Anyone else?
One last question. The aquifer that you're talking about that the water comes out of, is this the one that is also tied to the park?
Yep. Yeah. That same one. Yeah. I believe it's the largest aquifer. I know it's in the state. I mean, it's large. It's a very large aquifer. Yeah. I wish we could go down 10 feet and get clear water, like Mr. Berkland said. Yeah. No, we have to go down about 150 feet to get. Yeah.
All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter?
Aye.
Trustee Mariscal?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
All right, that passes. Next is discussion of VFW drainage issues. Dustin, you want to start this out?
Trustee Carter, I think.
Oh, Trustee Carter, you want to start this? I'm sorry.
Okay. From what I know in the past, like what the gentleman had discussed, that there's they get a lot of water being down below the hill, tons of water. I can remember a couple years ago that we brought this up to the board, and from my knowledge, what they were going to do is, I think it was left up, from what I understand, it was left up to the VFW to figure out the drain that's on their property, because I don't think it belongs to the village, to see what they were going to do with that. And that was the last I actually heard where that ended up. So I'm not sure if we want to call it.
Last we heard was that the village was going to have their street department, former, the leader for that administration, was going to go and investigate on this side, and we did not.
Well, we did run a camera. I think we ran a camera through, but I don't believe that we.
Well, I will comment on what's happened in the last year since I've been in this position. So as far as investigating the issue, starting with the drainage issue behind D's, which we currently just addressed. I'll have Mike speak to that in a minute. Met the Park District there as well. It actually went through private property, Park District property, all the way down to the VFW. And from my understanding, and I'm again going to let Mike explain this, he knows a lot more than I do about it, the pipe that comes out onto your property and the catch basin you're talking about is on private property, and I think that's one of the issues. But I think the other issue in question is whose pipe does that belong to, because that's kind of the problem. And I think that's what we've been trying to figure out. But as far as the village property and behind D's, we did camera the pipe. We've just lined new pipe. We put in a new catch basin on our end to see if that would help. So I think this has much more layers than just one quick solution. But as far as the gentleman that spoke earlier, one, I've never had any conversation about any of these issues other than with my people here. So I apologize that your call wasn't returned or for years, but I think that we're on it. We've done some things on our end to correct it. But before I go any further, Mike, you want to comment a little bit about this, about what you know as far as...
And just to let everybody know, I'm the junior vice for the VFW. So, and I work for the village. I'm the street superintendent. So, and I've talked to Eric and Don and everybody over there, Dave, and basically the water that comes up, comes down from the village down through there. We had a problem at the D's Auto Body. So at D's, we had that cameraed, and then we went on down to the VFW and had that cameraed and see what was in there, and the pipe, there's different areas where it was deteriorated and stuff, the pipe itself. The catch basin, or the lid in the middle, the drain in the middle, is caved in, of course. And so we went on down, we did that with the engineers, they looked at it. Then basically, we tried up top, like Chief said up there on top, to put a catch basin and get that line, but the still water comes down that way. So, and like Dustin has said, the main issue is that drain in the middle there is just, it's bad, and who owns the pipe? Right or wrong, basically. That's what, is in question here. So, and all my records that I went through, that Mark and them saved all my storm sewers and stuff, our pipe ended up at the trail, on top of the trail. What went down through the woods, there's no record of that I'm very truthful, that I ever seen that went down through there.
Mike, whose property does that go through then after?
After it goes up there, then the VFW owns the property. When it comes down the hill, the pipe down to the bottom catch basin down there.
So the village created the base on top. If that was private property, don't they automatically take ownership at that point? Or they ask for permission to put that catch basin up there? That was a village issue, which would at least lead me to believe that pipe going through there, we're just providing the right of way.
Right.
And we do have some documentation, which I'll take.
Are you talking about the bottom one or the top one?
The top one. Because it feeds into the top basin where they tried to slow the water down originally, whenever they just started fixing some of the side street stuff. And we dealt with that because it always just basically flooded the parking lot with just a little bit. It wasn't as bad as this thing. So we dealt with that. But then as they started doing more development, and they're pouring so much water down there, I mean, you get swept away if you're not careful. It's that bad. I've got video, I got pictures. If you guys want to see it, it shoots up water out of the drains. Our actual block in the middle of the actual parking lot, which is a breakout point, what have you, there's an actual sinkhole behind it. We lost parking there.
Well, I don't need to see any video. I'll take your word for it, sir. I think that is an issue. I'm not disputing that. I'm trying to find out who owns the land, who put the pipe in. The pipe has been there, I would say, probably, what, 40 years?
Probably, yeah. Since it opened, yeah.
So as far as finding out who's responsible, I'm not in a position to sit here and make that statement tonight, but I do think we can talk to our engineer and see if they could get some information on it. As far as who's responsible, I'll go on the advice of counsel as I move forward and get the information, but I think there has to be some more investigation. I can work with you, Mike, and we can get Herman and Associates involved and get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm going to ask you both tonight, both Mr. Casey and Mr. Sutton, and even Mr. Walton, to make this a top priority, to get back with us as soon as possible to investigate this. If it's our problem, we'll get it taken care of. And I appreciate you all being here tonight, and we take this seriously. So we're going to do some research, and we'll include you. And please call me anytime. The last person to call me, I believe, was Eric Thurman? Yeah, Eric. Yeah, that's been over a year. So we'll get on this.
Thank you. If I may interject, sir,
go ahead.
subject, last heavy rains that we had no flooding in the parking lot. If it had not been for some dedicated volunteers and members of our post, the cost to remove the water from our building would be $4,000.
Well, we love having you here. We're honored to have you here, and if it's our problem, I assure you, we will take care of it.
You have some questions from the board?
Go ahead.
The board has some questions.
Yes.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Go ahead.
So who is responsible for the water drainage infrastructure under private property? Would it be the owners of the property?
On private property.
Even though it runs under the property?
Most of it is on right-of-way, and it is our responsibility if it's in right-of-way. But once it's on private property, it's, not universal rule, but the general rule is if it's on private property, it's the owner.
Has the amount of water increased due to developments? Yes?
What developments? Can you tell us that?
It actually started when you started doing the new parking lots, the new buildings up here on the upper part, all the development up here, and all the nice, pretty stuff, and all the things that are going to be constructed here. It kind of works.
And I'm sure that it's development in combination with, just ecology and the way the environment's changing. I mean, we've had more rain in the last 5 years than we've had in previous years.
Well, the Treskers project was probably a part of it as well, because what we just had done was right behind D's, so I'm sure that was a huge part of it.
Right.
One last question. Would the parties who displace the water be responsible for the drainage? I mean, if you build a building, aren't you sort of responsible for the water you displace?
If you build a commercial building, and council can corroborate this, but there are requirements for creating water retention basins in commercial properties.
Yeah, water needs to be, drainage needs to be provided for either through detention or retention on the site or through the storm sewers, which would be village infrastructure. The third alternative is natural flow, but anytime you disrupt the natural flow, now you've got to either retain it or detain it on your property, or it's got to be, in sewers.
That's what I'm saying. So if the amount of water is increased, then something is deficient with the retainage. Am I understanding that properly?
We need to ask the engineers that question, I think.
Yeah, that's likely true, but not necessarily true. If you have more rain events, then, you may not have deterioration, or it may not be necessarily the development, but that's for the engineers. They'll be able to decide that.
Despite the amount of rain, it's still the responsibility of the owner to retain the water?
Certainly.
So like when 4500 went in, there is a retention underneath that parking lot, right?
That would be on storm sewer, I would think.
I thought they didn't have to put anything extra in.
I don't know.
I don't think so, not that I know of.
I don't know about
I
the
thought that
village,
they-
but in Peoria, if a developer comes in and does a building, then you either have to put I don't know if it's retention or detention, but,
It depends on the site.
okay, underground, or you have to create a basin somewhere. So at 4,500, there's no extra square footage for a
It's in the parking
basin,
lot,
so
I
it
think.
must be underneath the parking lot.
I think so, and like with PH Samuel LLC, they're putting a retention in underneath that apartment complex.
As did the Duryea Apartments Suite.
So my question is, since Trusker's wasn't a new building, did they have to include anything like that when they put that parking lot, increase that parking lot size?
Well, neither Dustin nor I were here at that time, so anyone on the board that recalls it.
I don't remember any of that.
Just curious, I would
Be something to look into, I guess.
Yeah, I don't recall them being told to do
I mean,
anything
that's the
about
site
it.
planning, I don't
Right.
think that we were,
So getting back to my question, so if the water's not being retained, it's not necessarily a responsibility of the VFW to fix the issue. So they're the ones that are getting the water dumped on them. Whether their pipe is adequate or not, the extra water isn't necessarily their fault.
If I may, this is not just a underground dispensary. They also have an enormous problem of water running on the surface down the hill from the trail above. A 3 weeks ago when this happened, we got the 5 to 6 inches of rain. They had to actually hire the guy who cleans the lot in the winter to come and plow the lot of gravel, bricks, and tree logs to clean the lot off. And that all came down from surface runoff from above.
From the trail?
Which is a park district, right?
Yeah, well, they need to be involved too, so.
It does seem like it's gonna be a multi-person problem.
so okay, I have a question. How far up does VFW own? Do they own just to the wall, to that back parking lot, or do they go up to the trail?
Trail.
So you own the wooded area and all of that. Okay, my next question real quick. You said that you could look for, do you guys have blueprints?
I think we have some, we'll have to dig them out, we have some.
Because that would probably tell us maybe when they got put in and who owns it. That would help us also. But we had a camera go through there, right? So was it
Right.
blocked or?
No, just basically showed the pipe's old and it's deteriorated on the bottom. The water still flows through it, but like you said, the water, it's going where it needs to go, down lake and...
When you have an extensive water coming through a little pipe anyways and going down a hill, there's more force.
Yeah, more volume and...
It's gonna, yeah.
Well, you gotta
Okay.
figure, the trail is paved now, so it
got something.
didn't have that stuff to
Yeah.
run off. And
The way I look at it though is, here's this and here's my business down here. Water runs downhill.
Right.
I've been fighting erosion all year for the last 2-3 years, and I'm still fighting it today.
Yeah.
I'm still fighting it today because people live at the bottom of the hill. I get water in my basement. I live at the bottom of the hill. And I know it's been overabundance and it's a troubling problem, but you're at the bottom of the hill. You own the property, it's at the bottom of the hill. Yes, the village water's going down that way. And we put a catch basin in there. Maybe it'll work or it maybe not. But 5 to 11 inches of rain, I don't care if you live on top of the hill. I got erosion problems.
Yeah.
So something was broke. Is one of the catch basins broken, did you say?
No, this is part of the D's project. The first phase is done.
Okay.
I got lining coming in for the second phase. That's in place, so we're trying to see if that will, set the water back or keep the water back a little bit.
When was that completed?
Before that storm. Yeah. Well, not with 11 inches of rain, no. No.
Okay.
I don't think anything would myself, and I'm not being smart, but I'm
What's
just,
amazing at our site, a very light rain that you could basically walk down the street and still deal with, we don't get flooded. If it's anything more than that, we start getting flooded. So it could be just a lighter rain where when you run into a business, do not get wet, that's when we start getting flooded. So anything gets moderated or moderate type of rain, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and that's when it gets ankle deep water.
Can I ask you this? Did it get flooded before the trail, or has it always been that way?
I'm not sure they did the trail, so I don't know.
I can remember days of,
That way.
years ago of it rained and the lot would flood. Because we would have functions down there and stuff, and I don't mean anybody, but my family or whatever. And that has always been an issue for you guys back then. Now, I'm sure it's probably worse now, but I remember that lot flooding really bad, and you would, if you have a function, you wanted to get there early and park up close to the building, because over by the hill and stuff, that's where it all started filling up, especially the two where it comes together. So this has been a long, ongoing problem.
Moving forward, I will have a meeting set with Mike, the engineers. I've already met with the Park District. They're a little bit familiar with my concerns. I will contact them again, get them involved as well. We need to get everybody together again because I have a lot of questions as far as who owns what. But moving forward, we will get something done, so.
Also, we also request the plate to go over the sinkhole we have in the middle of our parking lot so we don't have the car going to it. It's very unsafe there, and without us having to replace all that, and so we get it all sorted out, we'd like to have some kind of metal street cover plate to go over that hole.
We'll look into all of that, but I want the village engineer, the village council, the administrator, and Public Works to be involved, and they will be talking to you every step of the way.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is a discussion of an ordinance establishing water rates for 2019 to 2022. Go ahead, Dustin. Or Cheryl, do you want to, I'm sorry. You start this.
I'm very popular tonight, I got a lot on here.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So, the water. Come on up here, Dave. It's not a real good topic with me because we have to increase, and I don't like to increase anything. But in order to look into the future of what we are going to be needing, we're going to have to raise the water rates. And we usually do this 3 to 5 years. Last time it was 3 years. We're going to keep it again for another 3 years. Everybody has in their packet what Stephanie and Dave have come up with on the rate increase, how much it would be per resident, quarterly resident, business, school, country club, the dollars, potentially what it could be. We have a few things that we need to get. We need to budget for a backhoe. We need to budget for well 9 to be rehabbed. We need to budget for a couple water main replacements. That's going to cost us quite a bit of money. This is stuff that we're going to have to look into for the next 3 to 5 years, that it's going to have to be done. And if we don't budget for it now, start looking at it now, we're not going to have the money when it breaks down and we need it. So we have to make sure that we are looking forward and we're budgeting for it. So with that...
Can I add something?
Yeah.
The current water rate structure expires in December, so this has to be voted on no later than November. So we're giving you 2 meetings tonight and then the next meeting to discuss this with the plan of voting on it.
November 19th.
Yes, 19th of November, yeah. This structure in front of you, it's for 3 years. If you look at the current, and this is, we bill quarterly, but this is broken down to make it easier monthly. Over the 3-year period, it's basically a $5 increase per month. So it'd be, quarterly bill would be $15 roughly increase over 3 years.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, sir. Do the rates today meet the needs of the water department?
That's kind of a complicated question. So right now, the revenues are higher than the expenditures, but the reason that they're higher is because of things like this. We knew that there were infrastructures that projects that needed to be funded long-term. So essentially, part of what this does, the kind of middle section, it shows a breakdown of what the flat revenues would be if there was no rate increase. It includes the rate increase, what the projected revenues of that will be, and then shows my projections about what the expenditures are going to be over the next 3 years, fiscal years. And then from there, I started adding in the capital projects that need to be completed, looked at the actual cash reserves that we have on hand, and started to figure out where were we going to be at the end of all of this, and would we be able to cover everything. So the water rates right now would not allow us to accomplish what we need to accomplish in the next 3 years.
So there's a surplus now, but not to cover the capital projects?
Correct. The surplus is going to help fund a portion of the capital projects. The increase is what's necessary in order to fully fund the capital projects.
There's a surplus now because we haven't spent the money yet.
That, Trustee Gett is exactly right.
So do the increases only cover what's necessary for the capital projects? Or are they, I don't know if this is the right word, but padded? Is there more of an increase than we need to cover the capital projects?
I don't think so, but Trustee Weisenberg, I'm a fiscal conservative. So when I do projections, your revenues are low and your expenditures are high. That's the only way I know how to budget. So is there likely to be additional funds? Yes. Is there likely to be emergencies that will use those additional funds? Yes.
Guaranteed.
That's one of the things that I've seen over the last 9 years as bookkeeper, is every time I think that I know exactly what we need to spend, there's an emergency that I couldn't account for.
We just dropped another $18,000.
Yes.
I think to answer your question, it's not, this is not going to be something that we're going to pad our general fund. I think that what Dave will talk about pretty soon is that kind of how we've earmarked these dollars for projects, so.
Well, and Trustee Weisenberg, I mean, both Dave and I mean, we live here. We will be paying these water bills too. I don't do this lightly, if that's what you're asking. I know what I'm asking of the residents. I answer the phone calls when people call and say, you increased the water bills, what's going on? This is something that I can say to them, these are the reasons why. We need to do well rehab, we need to do water main replacements, we need to purchase a new backhoe in the next 4 years.
So what happens when the rates expire? You had mentioned we had to take action soon. What happens when the current rates expire? Do they reset to a default, or?
They would simply exist as they are right now until action is taken.
Okay, so they would stay at today's levels?
They would stay at today's rate, yes.
So this plan covers the next 3 years?
Correct. So it goes
Do we
through-
anticipate an additional increase in 3 years?
That's essentially the 3-year period, is to allow 3 years in the future us to assess where are we at.
Okay.
Project driven.
How do our rates compare?
That's what the board historically has done. I think if this board wanted to set rates for a year, we could do it that way. I mean, it's in your hands to just.
How do our rates compare to surrounding water companies?
Well,
Do you have those on?
we're lower than
Yeah, we are.
Illinois American.
We are lower than
Well, that's a good thing.
I do know that we're at lower than Illinois American. I don't have those numbers on me.
I mean, I'm paying a third right now a month that I was paying a month, and that was 6 years ago. Right, like I was paying let's say I was paying $30, now I was paying $90 a month before.
I mean, I know that just offhand, personally, my parents live in Chillicothe. I've looked at their water bills, and I haven't sat and analyzed it, but we're competitive as much as a government entity can be competitive.
No, I understand. It's just the garbage tax was put onto the water bill, right?
Right.
So now their bills are going to go up yet again.
Well, Trustee Weisenberg, I will say that the garbage is actually in the general fund. This is a water issue.
No, I understand, but to the person, but it's on the same bill.
I know, but it's two separate funding structures.
No,
and
I understand
can't
that, but
cross the
your average person isn't going to know that. The person paying, all they know is it's higher.
Believe me, I hear it all the time. My wife, okay? And I'm telling you, I just had a discussion with her about the water rates now, so, I mean, I understand we have to get this done,
$5
but.
a year for the next 3 years? It'll go up $5 a year for the next 3 years?
No, so next year, and I'm running these numbers off the top of my head, so Chief, correct me if I've got them wrong. Next year, I think it's $1.82 increase per month.
Per month.
The following year, it's,
359,
and then finally, at the end of it, it would be the,
525.
that's where it would end up at the end.
The
It's
increase
525.
So we're looking at like a total increase of
525 in 3 years.
525 in 3 years.
A month.
So
A month,
would it,
yeah.
would it be better to just do it up front and then not have any increases the following
Well,
years?
I believe
mean,
we
with
take it easy.
all the new businesses coming in and residents, and won't we be like generating more revenue from the water? I would think.
So
If you have all these, new businesses and people moving in and what our plans are for the future, if we just put it as a upfront one,
I think-
did it now, $5.20, whatever.
I think we could form that any way the board wanted, if I'm right. If this is just how, for example, we rolled this out, the 9, 8, and 7, we could really cut this any different way. Is that correct, Stephanie?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
willing to run any sort of numbers that the board
Yeah.
wants. I do think that it would probably have to be a higher increase up front because essentially you're getting cumulative funds that are happening. So the initial increase would be much higher. It actually, by having lower percentages at the beginning, it kind of builds up in a sort of way.
It softens the blow.
Instead of
to
doing like
start off.
$5 every year.
Yes, yeah, which I'd have to look at these numbers, but generally I think it would be a higher percentage, but I would have to run the numbers to be sure.
Okay, I have a concern about this. You just told me that well 12 is not good, right? And so on here, we have listed well 9 on a 3-year plan. So where does well 12 fit into that?
Well, 12, we are projecting it's not going to be an expense. It's going to be an expense that we can eat up or dissolve in the, using like the infrastructure maintenance fee fund or the water department budget. I don't expect that to be a extreme cost where it's going to have to be budgeted into like a capital improvement plan. My projection is $15,000, $20,000, and in speaking to Stephanie, she feels that's something we could
There's typically,
pay for other ways.
within budgeted expenditures, about $15,000 to $20,000 that could be dedicated to a project, which means that if he wants to, over the course of the years, he wouldn't be able to do it all at once if things go badly. He would have to come back to it the following budget year, but there would be funds available for him to work on that within the operating budget itself.
Now, that can completely change if they get in there and investigate it and they...
That's my concern, right?
Right.
We didn't think this well was going to be that expensive either.
True.
Now we're in close to $200,000.
Yep.
So you're telling me it's going to be 15 to 20 to fix this well, when I'm just not optimistic about that.
I got you. No, I understand
You know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah. No, and the reason why well 9 is on there is, and that's the well that I'm currently using, and in 2015 it was tested and it's only pumping at 50% its capacity. So, and that was in 2015. So it could have went downhill from there. It has not been tested since then, but that's why that one is on the, and it's my opinion, it's going to be the most expensive one to repair. That's why that's on this plan here.
So we have some time to get this how you want it. I would ask everyone to please email Dustin and Stephanie your suggestions. And again, we could set the rates for a year, come back, revisit it. We could set them for 3 years. We could do whatever you all want. So
I have some additional questions. So we've told the Heights community that the investments we're making in the developments are good for the Heights. With the TIF districts, the tax incentives, and yet if those investments are going well, how come we keep asking them to pay more fees for water increases? Shouldn't the investments or the money we're making from the investments help cover some of these essential services?
I believe it's because of the size of the projects, unless I'm wrong. I mean, I think it's because you're talking about $1 million projects.
$1 million projects, yeah. Yeah, it's about $100,000 a city block for a water main. I think the chief's right. It's just the overall expense of how much this stuff costs to upgrade or repair.
So at the end of the 3 years, if these rates are for these capital improvements, can we have some kind of sunset provision so that at the end of the 3 years, the rates would default back to what they are today?
we can structure it any way the board wants. And to answer your question about development, I think development and those sales taxes coming in strong have already helped alleviate other costs within the budget. I'd let Stephanie comment on that further, but if we end up with a surplus at the end of the year, the board can choose to put that money however they want. So as we get working on the budget, but would you comment on sales tax?
I just want to make sure that the investments we're making actually benefit the people in Peoria Heights. I don't want to keep hitting them with fees and taxes and increases when we're telling them that the investments that we're making in the business district is supposed to be better for the community. But if they keep seeing their rates increase and their taxes increase, they're not really going to see those.
Well, couldn't we set this up that every year we review if it's really necessary to make that next increase? I mean, because, I don't see why we can't review it. You're looking at wanting to set this for 3 years, set in stone, and it's going to do this way for 3 years. Why can't we set it up initially that this is what we want to do, but then let's review it every year, and see if it's really necessary for that next increase.
I think the reason we want to do that is we want to be proactive in getting these things rehabbed or repaired. I think under your philosophy, that would be more of a reactive state, and we're trying to be a proactive.
Well, no, it'd be said that it's going to happen, but we could always look at it to, hey, do we?
I think on a budgeting side, though, it would be easier to know.
We have budget every year.
To know ahead of the game how much money you're going to be dealing with. Right? Back to the business thing, Mark, is it possible to, once we have those TIF agreements in place, to alter anything on those? And the only reason I say that is, I know that, it's kudos to the Heights for giving 25% of the TIF to the school district, but enrollment, to me, looks like it's not where it hasn't increased. Is there any way to change that percentage on that? Because that would be a large chunk of change back to the village that we could use for infrastructure projects, correct?
There's a question whether we can and whether we should, and I'm not directly involved in the TIF projects because we have Klein working for us. My understanding is those are commitments that we can't back out on.
Okay, going forward though, on our TIFs, we could take a look at the percentages that we're paying to the school district. If perhaps we could lower it or will we even have any more TIFs?
I'm not sure if moving forward.
Well, they're all project-driven. The board, I believe, can craft those agreements however they choose.
But my understanding is our agreement with the school district is on a TIF district basis, not a project-by-project basis.
Right.
In other words, we've committed 25% of the revenue.
Right.
But you're right that on a going-forward basis, if we have a new TIF district, or if one expires and we extend it, those are all
And I'm not saying the school shouldn't get anything, I just think 25% is high.
Sure, that is something that can be
we're struggling to try to keep all of this moving too.
Right.
Yeah, but once we got those TIFs that we've already got in effect, that's already locked in. We can't change any of that.
Right.
So that part of taking what's already agreed to, we can't touch the existing TIF agreements.
Correct.
Only if we have a new. All right. I don't want to take anything from the schools.
And we're only giving the schools what they would have originally gotten if the TIFs didn't exist to begin with. So it's not like they're getting more than what they would originally have gotten. We're just leaving them alone. We're leaving the revenue stream alone.
Right.
Maybe the larger issues is that some of the revenue is going into the TIF instead of into the general fund to take care of some of these extra issues that pop up.
But I don't think you can change that.
No, you can't. No, you can't. But it's like a catch-22,
Well, a lot of this is policy decisions that the board needs to make when we prepare the next budget. And one of the things I think we should do is pay much more attention and have it maybe a specific budget for capital needs that's outlined for 5 to 10 years.
Right. I just think we should be able to show the citizens of Peoria Heights that their investments are making their cost of living less. Not
Well,
more.
I think that's an easy answer because, turning around the budget the way we have, we're going to have a surplus this year. If we were headed in the direction we were headed in, we would literally be looking at laying people off. We'd be looking at laying people off within the police department and public works. That's where we were headed. So you can easily show that we're providing services, and I share your concern, Trustee Weisenberg, about the middle class here and the expenses they have. But we do want to provide a high level of service, both with police and with fire and with public works. So let's work together to try and find the best outcome. So I'm somewhat in your camp, believe me, but then I'm listening to the treasurer and public works saying that we really need to address these issues. So let's try and find a way if we can work around it.
I agree completely. I mean, Dave and Stephanie, I agree with the need to get the capital projects done.
Yeah, infrastructure is kind of it's a bad thing because nobody sees it.
Right.
It's all underground, so that it's...
It's all expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally support the work you guys are doing.
Trustee Weisenberg, just to go back.
Infrastructure.
To go back to your original question of how things have improved from development, I do want to address this because I think that it's been a massive turnaround in the years that I've been here, and I think it's important to note it. The drainage project from D's was discussed in multiple budget years and was unable to be funded, so was unable to be completed. The resurfacing of Prospect Road was discussed for multiple years, was unable to be funded. We looked at the possibility that we were going to have to stay above MFT funds over multiple years and not complete our regular seal coating projects. We were able to do Prospect and complete our regular seal coating projects as normal, which is something I never imagined we would be able to do while I was here. There were pipes put in, drainage pipes that were put in a couple of years ago that we thought we wouldn't be able to do. And this is just all public works things that I'm thinking of. Police has been able to add the landlord registration program, which has been a massive boon to the community, I believe. And so we're providing more services right now, as well as completing some of the infrastructure projects that had not been completed and had been delayed for years. So there's still there's a backlog that needs to be complete.
But wouldn't you say a lot of that money came from the garbage?
So let's see, money for these projects came from a variety of sources, honestly. The Business Development District contributed to the drainage and the seal coating projects, so that's development driven.
But isn't that 60 grand that they want back?
So they the board had promised to make a good faith effort to pay back the BDD, but the BDDAC agreed that as long as the expansion went through, an acknowledgement of the increased cost the village would have to pay in order to expand that district, that they would forgive the good faith promise, essentially. So there is no liability there at all.
Right, I know, we
yes.
don't have to pay it back.
We don't have to pay it back.
Right.
They have agreed not to have it paid back. They wanted the expansion, and they wanted to have the village spend its funds to do the expansion. So now they have fully paid for that. They paid for the drainage project.
How much was the drainage project? Because the $65,000 out of the BDD was only for the seal coat of Prospect.
Yes.
And what did they put in for the drainage?
The drainage, I am going to say, is 70 or 80,000. I don't remember right off the top of my head.
When did we
it's
do
significant.
that? When did they do that?
The Ds, that was approved earlier this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was approved quite a while, but to get it scheduled, it took a while, yeah.
So garbage.
So we've taken, what, about 130,000 out of that fund, the BDD fund?
For public infrastructure, which per the plan, that is what the Business Development District is for, is to help improve infrastructure because that helps improve the businesses and draws people into the Heights. I mean, the look of the street is so much nicer and it makes people want to come here.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're driving down the Peoria street.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
Definitely.
So, I mean, it's a combination of the businesses, and also, yes, garbage was significantly helpful. It helped allowed us to balance our budget in order to be able to do some programs.
I have one more comment regarding the water rates real quick. Sorry, Mayor. Regarding it's actually regarding the water bill, regarding the infrastructure and maintenance fee fund, which is the $5 a month fee on the water bill. The water office gets calls daily about this. To date, since 2014, when that was put into action, it has generated $804,000, and I can tell you that every single penny of that has went toward infrastructure, water infrastructure upgrades. I had the list right here. So it's being used for the purpose of why it was put on the bill.
Just to provide some examples, because I have the same list and thought it was important to note, $66,000 has been spent in valve rebuilding. There was $107,000 spent replacing pumps, $25,000 spent on water mains specifically, $20,000 in chemical rehabilitation. We've dedicated that funding source to repaying the $1.5 million loan, and essentially INF is dedicated through the year 2031, I believe. Thank you, Trustee Carter. And we have repaid back $345,000 of that loan. Now, because of interest, we're just about at the break-even point, but the INF has been incredibly helpful in allowing the Waterworks Company to start looking towards these capital projects and looking toward water main replacements that it needs to do.
Okay, so just so that I understand, so I can ask some questions through email. If we want to go this 3-year plan, the first year would be like $1 something per month, right? So really, you're not going to really, I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I mean, $1.82 a month, I'm probably not even going to notice it if you hadn't said it. But then the second year, what's it going to go to?
$359.
$359?
Yeah.
And then the third year?
$525.
$525.
Yeah.
So basically $16 every quarter.
So 525 from what you're paying right now, not an additional.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is in total, not each year.
So another 82 difference.
So, quick question. So the infrastructure fee that Mr. Marfo just spoke about, shouldn't that be covering the capital projects?
Ideally, but what it raises is about $160,000 a year. And like I mentioned, in 2016, there was need to refurbish all 3 water towers and also a need to replace all of the water meters in Peoria Heights. So the administration at that time made the decision to get a loan, get a bond for $1.5 million to cover the cost of all these projects. The cost of the loan repayment essentially has meant that the revenue we bring in is dedicated to pay for the loan.
When is that loan going to expire?
2031. So INF is essentially tapped. It will slowly build up funds, but it will take it probably about another 2 to 5 years before there will be enough funds in there to be of any significant help.
So as Dave was saying, they still get a lot of calls for this infrastructure fee.
We don't. We honestly don't. About once a month, somebody will call and ask. They think, because it's listed as INF on the bill, and so if something's off in the bill, they'll look at that. They'll think that it's an insufficient fund fee. They'll call and ask. We'll explain that it's not, and then explain what it is for and what it's done. And honestly, once Emily or I have talked to people about what it's doing, I've not had a single person complain about it once they understand what it's going toward.
Right, so when we go to them and say, hey, we're going to have to raise your water rates for infrastructure costs, they're going to say, well, that's what the INF fee is for.
For previous, the infrastructure fee, $5 fee is basically paying for the previous infrastructure updates.
Okay, so it has a sunset of 2031?
No, it was never intended to pay for all infrastructure costs. With $1.5 million in water main replacements and $1.78 million in improvements needed over the next 3 years, we would have to charge an astronomical fee on there to cover actual full infrastructure costs.
So how does American Water, do they have a infrastructure fee separate from their water?
They do what they want because they're a money-making machine. So they can do what they want.
If I recall correctly, so I know that several municipalities and water utilities charge what they call a meter fee, and essentially they charge you a flat fee just on the fact that you have water service. It's not incomparable to our infrastructure fee, except for we are dedicating that specifically to infrastructure, so we can point to specific projects to improve. And then on top of that, they have water rates. Some of them have additional charges that go beyond that, but I don't have, Emily's talked to me before, she has Illinois American, but I don't remember exactly the details of what all charges are.
It would be nice to be able to compare.
Yes.
I can give you a quick example. If you call out Illinois American on the weekend to turn your water off, it's $125 to $150. Here it's free. So that's what they make. They make a lot of their money on those extra.
So we're going to move this along, but lots of good questions and discussions. So what I'm hearing too is that I think sometime in the near future we need on the departmental agenda a full discussion about all things public works, especially particular water, about service and everything. So Dave, you've heard all the questions tonight, so please work with Stephanie and Dustin to get all these questions taken care of, and we'll await your input. Cheryl, anything else under Public Works?
No.
Okay.
I got one thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Just let everybody know and everybody at home know that we're closing the Hill Thursday between 9 and 2. When Dylan had it closed up there, they did their project. We had a water main break at the bottom, so that was all fixed and everything's open, but the pavement at the very bottom is like a washboard, and it's about 100 foot long, so we want to go down there and get that corrected before the snow falls and it freezes and thaws, and we'll be down there fighting that all winter long. So that's the reason why. I didn't want to do it, but that is the reason why. But we will have it back open probably before 2 is what I'm thinking, so 9 to 2.
Thank you, Mike, and make sure Sarah updates the board.
Yeah, she got the info.
Hey, Mike, it feels like the hill's been closed more than it's been open this year.
I know, it's just, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Mike.
Trustee Carter, anything else?
I think that's enough.
All right, and I don't mean to be rushing anyone, but we got a lot of business still before us yet. So, Trustee Gett, we'll be at administration. We have an action item, approval of a BDD beautification grant by Slow Hand Barbecue LLC. I'd ask for a motion to approve that.
I make a motion to approve it.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, looks like we have grants that we will match for when businesses do improvements. Chief, you want to take it over?
Sure. This was submitted back in July by Slow Hand in the amount of, the requested amount of $5,853.75. This was put on the BDD agenda twice. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a quorum at that time, but, talking to the members that were present, they were in favor of it, but they did not have a quorum. The work has been done, so it is in front of you today. So I recommend that we do move forward with approving this grant. The sign looks great if you haven't seen it yet. It's Slow Hand. So again, the amount is $5,853.75.
And it's been approved by the BDD as well, reviewed and approved?
No, it was, they did not have a quorum. The two times it was on the agenda, but the
I was thinking about our meeting last week. I thought that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, so in talking to Kevin Shields, he agreed that the members that were present were in favor of it. We just could not get a quorum. So I think we've held off so long, it's time to bring it to the board.
Kevin and Rob Matheson were both invited tonight. I don't see them out there. So.
No, I don't see them either.
So typically we would know before the job is done, right? Because this isn't the first time, actually.
When did the sign go up, and when was the first time they asked to be on the BDD agenda?
Well, it looks, Stephanie, do you have the exact dates?
So this was submitted to me in August. It would have been submitted to me August 6th.
And do we know when the sign went up?
I do not know.
Well, the sign went up before my sign went up, so I'm thinking it went up in July, just to throw that out.
Okay.
I'm thinking. And how much did we approve for the advertising for this?
$30,000.
I know it's different, but.
Well, just briefly on that update, as of right now, that's dormant. They've not moved forward with that because at the time the board requested, as far as the agreement, it had some specific outlines they wanted in the agreement. They have not brought that to me, and I've talked to Mr. Matheson about that since, and as of right now, that's on hold. So they did not meet what the board required in the agreement, so therefore it's not been brought back to you. So right now, that money has not been allotted.
Yeah, but if he brings it to you tomorrow, we have to give him the $30,000.
I don't think that's going to happen. At my discussions with him, I think that they're going a different route. I'm not going to speak for him. I wish he was here, but I'm not sure that, I would say it's a high probability it's not going to happen.
What wasn't met?
The board requested, as far as the agreement, some copyright issues in there that the village could meet, and there was some red tape regarding the company. They did not want to release that. So I think, as of right now, it's you want to call it dead, dormant, whatever you want to call it, but as of right now, it is not going anywhere. And I've had discussions with Robbie as well on this, so I'm not sure that's ever going to come back to the board because that was not met in the agreement. so.
Yeah, because we wanted ownership.
That's exactly, but there were a lot of conflicts there, so that's why it hasn't been brought back to the board.
But if it were to, because we voted yes on it,
You voted yes if the stipulations in the agreement were met, but that was not met.
but if he came tomorrow and they were met, we would have to honor the $30,000.
I would think you would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Anyone else? Okay, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Trustee Carter? Aye. Trustee Mariscal?
Aye.
Trustee Kazan?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Nay.
Okay, that passes with one and opposed. Okay, Trustee Gett, next is opening a discussion of bids for vacant lots.
I believe we've discussed about this before, right? You got the opening bids
Yes.
with you, Chief?
Stephanie has the bids. The RFP expired a couple weeks ago on our vacant lots. We did receive some bids, some individual bids, and some as a group. Council, you want to give us direction on what the next step should be here?
Certainly. I would say just identify what, just as briefly as you can, what bids we received, and then we will have a resolution to approve a sale. I don't want to belabor it tonight, but if you
They
could
need to be evaluated.
briefly go through them, yeah.
Okay, so I have a proposal for 618 East Scioto, 4804 North Ellen, 723 East Division, 1105 East Duryea, and 5012 North Best Street.
So all five.
All
parcels.
five
Yeah, that's all
properties,
five.
purchase price of $26,200. I also have individual bids for two of the properties. This one is for 1105 East Duryea, and the amount,
So just while you're opening those, so is there a stipulation that they have to build what they had told us they're going to build, the
Single-family house.
single-family affordable housing? They can't buy it and throw a $400,000 house on the lot?
That's going to be in the resolution that approves the sale. And the deed to them will have a deed restriction, where we get the lot back if they don't comply, so absolutely. These are just the offers.
for 1105 East Duryea, just by itself, a purchase price of $6,000, and for 4804 North Ellen Court, just by itself, a purchase price of $9,100.
So council will ask you and Dustin to evaluate the bids, make a recommendation back to the board, and let's act on this as soon as possible.
Absolutely, will do.
Thank you.
So we got 3 bids, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Total three. Okay.
one was for all five, and then two for individual properties.
And the all five one was how much? 26,200.
26,000.
Yes.
26,200.
Is that information in our packet by chance?
No, we just
No, we just opened them.
Trustee Gett, anything else?
I don't have anything else, Chief.
I do not, thank you.
Okay, on to fire. Trustee Weisenberg, discussion of the Grandview Terrace Fire Service. Go right ahead.
Perfect, thank you, Mayor. It was brought to my attention recently that a neighborhood in our community lacks appropriate fire protection coverage. One of the main functions of municipal government is to provide police and fire. And I would like to ask at this point, I had handed out, I don't know where I put it, my copy.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but Chief Walters, you're welcome to come up here and take a seat, sir. And Trustee Gett, I'd ask you to take over. I'll be right back, so.
Okay.
It's all on you, Jeff.
All right. Okay, Trustee Weisenberg, go ahead.
Sure. So I don't know the fire lingo as well as Chief Walter, so I'll summarize and then I'll hand it off to him. Long story short, the bottom Grandview Terrace doesn't have adequate water supply along that road to provide any fire protection services. There are some other issues, the width of the road, how steep the road is for our fire equipment to get up the road. And Mr. Becker also highlighted some other issues as well. So if you wouldn't mind, Chief, could you just give us your assessment on those difficulties with Grandview Terrace?
Well, from the fire department perspective, access and water supply are key. I have neither. I do have water supply at the corner of Grandview Terrace and Galena Road. It's about a 900-foot, or I'm sorry, about 700 foot from that one hydrant to the base of the hill where it becomes a private road.
So from the top of Grandview Terrace down?
No, actually, we're at the below, we're below it right now. So we've got one hydrant, and honestly, I don't know what the gallons per minute is on that. Is that a redhead?
Orange.
Oh, it's orange? Okay. There's a reason for those colors, by the way. It tells me the gallons per minute. Orange makes a difference. What we have on board, as far as not having fire protection, I guess it depends on how this is discussed, I suppose. We have above ground water main that we carry on our fire trucks. It's that 5-inch hose. Connected to an orange hydrant would give us sufficient water service to fight a structure fire on that lower level, because we're not facing any friction loss from the water going through the hose. So we should have adequate to fire that structure, or to fight the structure fire. Going up the hill on that private road's a different story. I have no access to there for my fire apparatus. The road is too narrow. From what I have seen, it's in disrepair for my needs. I cannot get a fire truck up that hill at all. I don't think I can get my pickup truck up that hill, frankly. We have what we call pre-planned, the worst-case scenario, with those 6 homes that are in that particular area. And out of all the pre-planning work that we've done on it, we're able to do what our job is, but it's going to be delayed simply because we have to go through people's yards. And if it's in the middle of the night, nobody's there, we're going to have to take down gates. We're going to have to go through from above. From above, coming down Grandview Terrace off of Grandview Drive down to that area, halfway down, or a little bit farther than halfway down, is a very adequate fire hydrant. I think it's gauged at 1,500 gallons per minute. That's a color we can discuss. It's light blue. It's a tremendous amount of water that's given to us, and it's right off of the Glen.
Where is that? That's at Grandview?
Grandview Terrace, as you go down the hill,
Yeah.
off of Grandview Drive. That's about 2/3 the way down.
If you go to page number 2, picture number 2,
you can see
it. It's off in the distance on the left hand.
And that's a relatively new fire hydrant. That system was upgraded, what, 5-6 years ago?
20 inches.
Yeah, it's a huge water main. So that gives us water to the houses that are at the bottom of the top half. Okay. We have more than adequate water supply to handle what we've got there, and we've got room for apparatus. From that point down the hill from the top, there is no water down there. We would have to create that. And what we would have to do, if we've got a fire on any of those 6 structures, you follow where I'm at? Okay. We would have to go through those properties, and we would have to stretch, in our terminology, we would have to stretch hose lines and set up a water supply system just past those houses to supply those 6 houses if one or all of them are on fire.
How long would you say that would take to set up?
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Roughly?
I couldn't.
An hour?
No. It'd be, depending on manpower, time of day, I don't know. It's a rough estimate, 20 minutes. Now, fire doubles in size every 90 seconds.
Right.
So you take that into consideration.
So the homes that have their own fire hydrant?
They do not.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that...
No, they do not. And I don't understand the legalities of this. It's considered a private road, so therefore it's not maintained by the Village of Peoria Heights.
We don't plow it or anything.
Therefore, I don't think it was required at the time it was put in that since it was a private road, that a hydrant had to be installed there as it does on a public street per code. Code requires now, when you're building anything, you've got to have fire hydrants located so much.
Right.
But when it's designated, and I don't know, Council, maybe you can expand on that if you know that area.
Yeah, no, you have an obligation to undertake reasonable efforts.
Which we would do.
Yeah, and that's it, but if you don't have access and there's inadequate water service, those efforts aren't going to go very far.
I agree.
What obligation do we have to place hydrants?
We've none.
Down a public street or a private street, none.
Why is this just coming up now?
Well,
That's my question.
I mean,
Something that should have been
address,
decades ago.
yes.
what I don't understand is when I'm going through Peoria, I see hydrants on private property all the time. Like, for instance, like at the mall.
Well, those are required by code, even though they're private hydrants, because when the building was built, it's required, because it's a business, it has to have so much water supply around the perimeter of that building. That was a requirement. I don't know when those houses were built that we're talking about right now, but as the 30s, probably back then there was no such thing as a building code or anything of that nature that was adopted by the Village of Peoria Heights.
Right, and the bigger picture is we have the six, is it 6 houses?
5 or 6 houses.
5 or
something
6
of that
houses.
nature. Well, Mr. Becker could be able to.
These residents,
Yeah.
these residents are paying taxes. And I don't think it's too much to ask that there's water available if their house catches fire.
Well,
this is a basic service.
How do we even do that? Like, how do we get a hydrant there?
Well, Dave knows.
Dave, you want your chair back?
No, I'll stay here. So those houses are serviced by a 2-inch, basically a 2-inch water line. You can't put a hydrant on a 2-inch water line. So what you have to do is hook a water main at Galena Road and a 4-inch water main, run it all the way up to the middle of Grandview Terrace. That would give adequate pressure, fire protection pressure.
Smarter to go from the bottom up than to go from the
Yeah, that's what I was
top
gonna
down?
ask.
I mean, why wouldn't we go from a more accessible point from like Grandview?
Well, you're basically connecting 2 points. You're connecting the top of Grandview Terrace to the bottom of Galena Road. You put a water main in between those to connect.
What you don't want is a deadhead hydrant. So if there's a problem, the way he's talking about, you got water from coming from 2 directions.
Right.
So if we have a problem on one side, we still got water. Deadhead hydrants are problematic, and I don't know if we have any here, but...
I believe we have a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
What does that cost?
For the water main?
Well, yeah, for us to do that.
A rough projection.
Yeah.
Roosevelt Road was $250,000. That was 11 houses. You've got 6 houses here, but you've got approximately 30 houses on Riverview that are serviced by a 2-inch line. You wouldn't want to run a brand-new 4-inch water main all the way up Riverview and not tap those houses onto it as well.
Right.
So you're probably looking about $400,000.
So our new water bill budget just went from yes,
it did.
592.
Yeah.
That's right.
I tell you, from the fire department's perspective, our biggest issue is not the water.
It's getting your...
We bring water with us, and we could have people bring more water for us. What we don't have is access.
You can't
I
get
do
your
not.
trucks
I
there.
can't get to it from the top, and I can't get to it from below because of the width of the street, of the road.
But if you had a hydrant, you wouldn't need a truck. You could just...
Oh, yeah, you would.
But
Oh, yes, you would.
That's all the way to your house.
All the fire hydrant does is supply the fire truck.
You need the hose and the equipment.
The fire truck supplies the pressure, which supplies the fire hoses, which puts the water out. The fire hydrant's just what we tap into.
If there was no hydrant other than where you have now, but you could take the water truck there, how much time would that give you to put on a structure fire? Like how much, do you have enough water?
If I had access to a road
Yeah.
that would get me up to any of those 6 houses, depending obviously on the size of the fire, we could do it anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes.
Because you could use that while someone was setting up the structure from...
Every piece of apparatus we have, fire trucks has 500 gallons of water on board it, all right? Roughly, when we're using our standard hose lines, that's 165 gallons per minute maximum. That's putting out a lot of water. I'll give you an example. The apartment fire that we had that was discussed, we had that nice letter from the police chief. We used 500 gallons of water and put that apartment out with that 500 gallons of water before we were able to energize the hydrant. It happened that fast.
So that's not, I mean, that wasn't a raging fire.
Oh, yes, it was. Well,
Okay.
we had a 12 by 12 bedroom that was completely involved from floor to ceiling, from wall to wall, and it was penetrating out of a window, out of a door.
Taking a house down.
It would, oh yeah, yeah. So, I mean, having 500 gallons of water from our perspective is not what we want. We prefer more, but we can do a lot with 500 gallons of water. You can put the fire in check, hold it in check until we have additional water supply established. Ideally, from the fire department's perspective, what we would want for that area is adequate water supply and good access. I
So
don't
you need a
think we're
road.
like-
So
Pardon me?
basically, you need a road.
I need a road. I need a 12 to 14 foot wide road.
Right.
What size? Do you know what that is? The size it is?
It's 12.
That is 12?
I drive a pickup up and down every day. I've got a 20-foot trailer up there. Maybe we need to think about.
Maybe I should.
Do you want to think about size of equipment, maybe instead of? Can you get the brush truck up there?
No, we tried to get, we've tried that, and it just, I think, and I'm not knocking who's taking care of the road, I just know our apparatus as it comes around the corner, I'm not comfortable when the wheels of my duals are that far from going over to a drop. That's not
Chief Walters, if you guys look at the last page of the pictures, that tells you right there how wide the road is. I would argue that's 12 feet. I drive my little Transit Connect van up and down it, and that thing is not 12 feet wide.
Especially when you reach the peak.
Yeah, and if you look at the next page, the second to last page, you can see if you go over the edge, you're going to be on top of somebody's roof.
Is there a way to widen it like it looks kind of in this last picture that we could widen the road to the left? Is that?
This is private property.
Okay, could someone widen it to the left is all I'm saying, like, is there room on that?
There's drainage on that side.
Okay.
Yeah, as you go down the hill, there's drainage.
So we have other private roads in the Heights. We just dealt with one a couple meetings ago, Brockway, and what is East Lake?
Yeah.
Are there hydrants along those roads?
There are.
Closer.
So
But
the fact that
they're
it's
level.
Yeah, that's.
They're level.
No, I understand.
We're dealing with an incline.
No, I
Attached to
understand,
it.
but I'm talking about the hydrants, not so much the access right now. One of the concerns raised was that it's a private road, not our responsibility for the hydrants, but we have hydrants on East Lake and Brockway.
It's the easement, it's in the easement.
It's an easement,
We
okay.
ran a new water main across the country club to tie in the Grandview Drive, and it's in the easement, both places. Even to work on Broadway,
But the easement,
there's an easement.
understand, but easement is just legalese for, we have access to the
We
land.
have a utility there, yeah.
Right, I know, I understand that. And I don't think any of the residents along Grandview Terrace would have issues with us having access to the property. So I don't think easements are really an issue here. The issue is, we don't have water up there. And worse yet, we don't have access.
Trustee Weisenberg, though, you're missing the point. Though the point is, if you spend $400,000 on a water main, how are you going to get up there to fight the fire? That's the issue.
That's the main problem is we can't get our vehicles up there. I mean, I'm looking at these pictures and stuff, and I drive a conveyor truck and a boom truck and stuff, and I've dealt with roads like this, and your guys a lot wider, and your clearance going over things are a lot lower. I mean, I can see the issue here, especially with the foliage and everything. The road needs to be widened in order for you to get up there, but who's going to pay for it?
So, I mean, the road is owned by who? I understand it's private, but is it a collaboration of all the owners?
It would be shared.
Does anybody really know?
Properties?
It's not on any of our property lines. If you look at individual property lots, the road is marked private, but I don't own the section from the house either.
Who maintains the road right now? So when you guys have snow, you put money in the pool and then we use that for any repairs that we need.
So we don't know who owns the road? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's collectively owned, I'm sure. I mean, it's,
I don't, that seems awfully vague. I don't know what that means.
well, there are all kinds of private drives all over the place where it's not village property, it's owned by all of the homeowners that have property that touches the road.
I'm familiar with this road, and I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know that there wasn't water access, which obviously is a big safety issue, and we're all going to be concerned about it. What is interesting to me is that when this road was created and people were allowed to build homes there, why wasn't this infrastructure situation dealt with at the time? Like, how could this ever have been allowed to happen?
Because it was back in the 30s or something?
1930s.
I mean, they didn't put any thought into that stuff. I mean, there wasn't any code, building code. I mean, they didn't even think about.
That would not be allowed.
I mean, I've gone into places here, just in the south end of Peoria, I went, well, when they built this neighborhood, they weren't thinking about a truck this size.
At one time, did that road not go all the way through?
It's still,
It did. Do you know when?
it's blocked now, correct?
the 50s and 70s.
Okay.
It was collectively built by one architect, that built 4 houses, and then
Right, I remember it being all the way through.
If you go to the third picture, that shows you where the road would go through, right where the basketball hoop is, between the two houses, that's where the road would exist, or it did at one time.
One time went
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I remember driving down that road in my high school days, so.
So I looked at the Google map pictures of that, and you could actually see the old road.
Yeah, I got it right here, you
The
can see
road
where it
bed's
goes
still
through,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
China Hill?
So I think we have several issues here. We have obviously the property issue with the fire, but we also have the life safety issues.
Right.
With, you know, young children and families in those houses. How do we provide emergency services to those houses?
Well, another thing is you can't get an ambulance up there.
That's what I'm saying. From what I'm understanding, it's the water is an issue. Not only to preserve property, but to preserve life. You know, the faster you get out of fire, the greater the chances that you're going to save the person inside the house, assuming there's someone in the house. And then the second issue is ambulances can't even get up there. So it is a multifaceted issue. I think we should be required, whether I'm speaking legally or not, to have water available there. And then I think it's on the responsibility of the property owners to ensure that the road is able to accommodate our emergency vehicles. We're obviously responsible for providing the water. They're obviously responsible for ensuring that we can get to the water. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, all good points, and you had this placed on the agenda, so what's the plan then?
Hey, I'm new here.
But Chief, you're saying that if the apparatuses could get
No, I know,
there,
that's a fair question.
you
I
would
understand.
be able to supply water.
Initially, yes, to knock it down, and then we would get water from other sources, whether we hand stretch it up there, bring it from above. If I can get up to the building, that's half the battle. Get me to the fire with a truck that's got water on it, I can start doing what needs to be done. If I can't get there, I can't put the fire.
What is the minimum width you need to get there?
That I'd have to do some research on, honestly. It's not just the way, it's the turning radius. I know you got some sharp turns down there.
Right.
This is going to take some engineering.
Well, also, I mean, if it's winter, forget about it.
Right.
And I know I'd posed this question, and I'm not saying that I support this option, but if the road can't be maintained.
Can be or cannot?
What's that?
What did you say, can be or cannot be?
Cannot be.
Okay.
Or the residents along these roads are unable to maintain the roads, have it at an appropriate width to provide emergency services. Would it be and I'm not sure if the residents would even support this idea, but the village take the road and ensure that it meets the requirements for our emergency services. Not saying that's an option.
Well, again, that's a policy decision.
Absolutely could. They
We could, yes.
To the village tomorrow, if we wanted to accept the dedication.
And I'm not saying that's an option, but there are some safety issues here.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, but now we need to find some solutions. So looking for direction from both you and the rest of the board. We need access from above the hill and below the hill. Would you want to extend the street if we take that over? I don't know. Those are all questions that need to be accessed.
If we take over the street, I mean, that'd be something to consider because of what you would have to pay anyhow to widen it and everything.
I read meters down there, it's a path, it ain't a street.
Yeah.
How does something
I'm just saying that if we were going to have to take it over in order to pay to widen and stuff, it would behoove us to continue it on down because that used to go all the way down and open up. I mean, this is not cheap. Concrete's not cheap. I mean...
No, it's not cheap. I'm just...
I mean, lives are a lot more important when this is...
This is an issue all around. I mean, if an ambulance can't even get there.
Well, their garbage isn't even picked up there, from what I understand.
Your garbage is
right?
not
Years ago, when they built these Or the top?
How do they get there?
Oh, the bottom, okay.
I mean, when we say...
I was going to say one thing.
Sure.
I was on the fire department when Bill Bear was here. And Greg, I don't know if they still got this in plan, but their plan was to load a pickup truck with fire hose, hit the hydrant at Galena Road, Riverview Court. We drove up the hill, stretching hose out, we got to the house that was on fire. That's how it's been since I've been here, probably since I've lived here for 56 years.
That's one of the pre-plans we looked at.
Or not, but
Yep.
that's how we trained, and we went down there and laid those, and did that. That was 20-some years ago.
Yeah, well,
That was our,
still, we need to be able to get, we still need, right, I understand. We need to get, we need to be able to get our vehicles there.
Right.
Save these lives.
Ambulances, everything.
I don't know, can we get, what's AMT's plan? Like,
I don't think they have a plan.
Can we find that out? Like, how are they gonna get there? They're gonna take a stretcher up that.
No, they won't. What they'll end up doing is, they've got, I don't want to call it a collapsible cot. It's actually more like a tarp with handles. They would go up to the victim along with the fire personnel. We'd load them up there and we'd actually carry them down, or we'd grab a Stokes basket and bring them down there because they can't get their rig up there. We would have to carry them down. Yes, sir.
We can get an ambulance. We've had tree trucks up there, we've had... We can get an ambulance down the road.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I don't agree. I don't agree. I don't agree an emergency vehicle going up there simply because the width is too shallow from my perspective. But ambulance as well, they're very wide. Well, I don't know, I'm not feeling that.
No, I agree.
Have you had an emergency where that has happened?
Not for a while. We've not had a call up there since I've been the fire chief.
So, well, I was thinking an ambulance or something else.
Either, because I would know about it. No, we've not had any calls in that area since I've been the fire chief. They have had them in the past. They've had fires up there in the past.
I feel like we need to research some things, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I
how is the
agree.
ambulance getting up there?
Yeah, this is just a
What is
discussion.
AMT's plan? Like, what is our preliminary plans? Which one of our vehicles can make it? Like, I think we need to test that out and try it. Like, I think we need to do something, right? Like, this isn't fair to them, but we can't assume everything. I think we need to do some research on that.
How many of the residents are here? All 6 houses? 5 of us. 5 of us, so a majority. You're obviously aware of the difficulties. What do you guys want to see happen? I mean, if we added water, we still have the issue we can't get to the water.
I mean, personally, I do disagree with that. Just what we've done, work on our personal house in the last 3 years, but also our neighbors next door, we weren't residents then, but in 2010, they took a 1,300 square foot house and made it a 4,600 square foot house. Trucks get up there. There's no way a house that's now 4,600 square feet became that without giant trucks of materials.
Okay, those trucks have a better clearance than the fire trucks do. Seriously, I mean, I'm not trying to, but there's an issue. Their clearance is not as high as, because I deliver construction all the time, and we sit up higher than what their clearance has. And I've gone into some areas. I go into that one, no problem, but we clear.
The $400,000 for all the infrastructure is too much, to bear. Can we look at what is the price of an adequate vehicle, piece of equipment that's smaller? There's got to be stuff out there.
Well, we would rely on surrounding communities' fire department because these fire trucks are over, $500,000. I mean, they're very, very expensive.
At least $500,000.
Yeah, at least.
How much is a ladder truck? 1.5.
But that's not unrealistic. Communities rely on other communities all the time for situations, and not just in a situation like this.
We would not sit idle, obviously, based on what we have, the equipment we have, the personnel we would have. Not a best-case scenario, but we would do the best that we could with what we've got to handle the situation until the assistants got here. And it could be 5 to... Yes, sir.
Chief Walters, before the weather turns bad, could you at some point in time bring one of your trucks out the hill?
I will not. No offense to you, sir, I will not. I've gone up that in my pickup truck. Okay? I will not take a fire truck up there. There's just not enough room, the hairpin turns, and I'm not going to risk, at this point, a $500,000 piece of apparatus to come out, because there's no place for us to turn around that I'm aware of. Because, you can drive up it, you're not going to back that thing down the hill.
Yeah, it's one thing to drive up it in an emergency,
driving
but...
up is one thing, but, I've got to be able to back that thing around and bring it back down.
Yeah, it's one thing to drive up there in an emergency, it's another thing just to drive up to see if he can do it or not.
So Brandon, can you get a hold of some of the outlying communities or perhaps Chief Sutton and see if they have smaller trucks that would be able to get up there, like Peoria?
I think that a lot of things need to be addressed, and I agree with what everybody said here. I mean, it's a quality of life issue, it's a public safety issue. I will reach out to AMT and find out what their plan would be, because I've been here 25 years, and the only situation I can remember being down there was a police situation. Obviously, the squad cars can get there, but I think there are a lot of things need to be answered. That's why we have agreements with surrounding communities. If we need help, they can bring in the smaller units. But I think all that needs to be in place and addressed so everyone has peace of mind, because like Trustee Weisenberg said, this is a huge concern. My only concern about taking over is the option he just brought up. Taking over that street, I'd want to talk to, our Public Works Department, and what kind of maintenance would that entail? What kind of cost would that entail? But I think a lot of things need to be put on the table and discussed, and I think this is a great starting point. But I will start this week to reach out to Peoria, AMT, and see if we can get some things in place and some more options. And I think sometime soon, we'll bring that back to the board and discuss it, and I do think we can come up with a game plan so everybody's happy. So, sir.
Would remind you of a lot of the surrounding areas, Peoria Park District, and it's all forest.
Yeah.
And if a major fire begins in one of those houses, pretty soon, you can't get it out.
Right.
Pretty soon you're going to have a forest fire.
Right.
And we're going to look like Southern California.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we actually had an issue not too far from Grandview Terrace, Terrace View and St. Jude, the hill above it. I was living down there at the time. It was on fire. Not only was it on fire once, they left, and it started back up again. So that threat is real.
It's real.
All right, so, yes, sir, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just throw this out there. Would it be possible to store hoses somewhere up on the hill? If you had water up there?
And that's an option that I know I've discussed with Trustee Weisenberg, just off the top of our head. Looking for short-term fixes.
That's a good idea.
Or short-term setup until we can figure out a long-term solution. The possibility of, like I said, about a dry hydrant.
Okay, so just to elaborate on that, so if we had hoses up there and we had a hydrant up there, we wouldn't need a fire truck.
You still would eventually, yes. We could.
I just don't understand.
This is going to take some engineering to figure this out, because you could effectively put pipes in the ground without any water in it, where we would connect from the top using one of our fire trucks, pump down into a box, if you will, and something we'd have to engineer that would have controls that somebody would actually control the pressure in it. And we could have storage boxes there that would hold hose, handles and stuff like that, where, you're right, a fire truck would not be needed unless this went to a second house or to a third house or something of that nature.
And forgive my ignorance on the fire side, but if you had an actual hydrant hooked up to an actual water main, like the 4-inch main, could you just hook a hose to that hydrant and start fighting a fire?
You can initially, but you can't. You cannot control the pressure.
Okay.
You cannot control the pressure on it where you can with a fire hydrant or with a fire truck.
Because typically it would hook from the hydrant to the fire truck to the hoses.
Right, and then you guys are able to control the flow so you don't run out of pressure.
Correct.
Because if you just hook it straight to the fire hydrant, if I'm correct, eventually you're going to run out of pressure, correct? Not to control it. And the truck is to pump it and keep the pressure constant, correct?
Exactly. And to shut off. I think what's going to be...
Start off, you can slow it down, but you're going to need a truck there eventually.
I think further conversation is going to need to be done on this, Trustee Weisenberg, to give, Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, what's this going to cost, who's got to do what, that kind of stuff, because, we could probably talk here all night and not come with a solution. I understand your concern, and I feel your concern from the fire perspective. I can tell you at this point, if there's a fire there, we're going to be there. We will be there, and we will be there quickly. I can't tell you how fast the water and the fire truck's going to be there, but we're going to be there. We're going to do what we can. I want to assure you that. your firefighters will be there, and our help will be coming. It's not the ideal solution. And hopefully, maybe in further communications, we can come up with an ideal solution.
So, thank you, Chief. What we're going to do is ask you and Chief Sutton, this is mainly fire, but a lot of public works. I mean, there's multiple solutions to this situation that's not a new, it's been ongoing. So we will look into this. I'll ask you, Trustee Weisenberg, to work with Trustee Carter because it's public works. And council, something you probably have to be involved in as well, the village engineer. We're going to ask you, Chief Sutton, to work with Chief Walters and get back with us. And just, I know you don't brag about your career, Chief Walters, but you did run the Peoria Fire Academy for many years. I mean, you were an expert in firefighting, so there'd be no one better to be at the table than you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Trustee Weisberg, anything else under fire?
No.
Okay, so we would be at police. Trustee DeVore, code enforcement update.
We don't have our normal printout on the code enforcement update because we are coming into our winter months where we're still working on things, but we will not have the update for that the numbers are so low. So just until we get back into spring and those numbers spike again, we will just be going over the landlord registration. You do have an updated copy in front of you, but Shane is here tonight, so we get to hear from him, which I'm super excited about, so I'll let Shane give us this.
Welcome, Shane.
Yay, Shane.
Okay, to update the board on the landlord registration for the month, for October so far, we've done 20 inspections. 18 of those, we've had recommended updates on the property, leaving 2 that were, I hate to say perfect, but they were outstanding condition. So did do one re-inspect on a property that was issued a follow-up inspection, and that property did pass. I still have 3 pending properties at this point that I'm working with the property management companies or the owners on to get those corrected. So where we're at so far this year, we've done 267 inspections, and those are not repetitive. Those are individual homes or apartments. Unless they fail, there's no reason to go back unless they call us, and then of course we do that, and that has been the case also. I have 16 fails so far this year total, and like I said, we still have 3 pending. I'd also like to tell the board that the floods that so many have spoke about already a couple weeks ago, I have been contacted by several of the renters in the village. Of course, they've gotten water in their basement, and I've gone over and assisted any way I can. One of them that I'd like to tell you about a little bit, this was a family that was placed there by the Peoria Housing Authority, a low-income family, didn't really feel like they had any leg to stand on. They actually came up to see me at the police department during the storms. They braved the storms to come up to see me, and this was that Friday. I told them, let's kind of give it the weekend and see what happens, work with your landlord, or work with the property owner, of course. So I went back that Monday, and the conditions were still bad. It was still ankle-deep water in the basement. I actually recommended them to contact the Peoria Housing Authority, and on my behalf, asked them to come out, send their inspectors out to do a reevaluation of the property. And I also felt, since they had 2 small children that had breathing problems, it wasn't safe for them to be in the house. So I did draft a letter requesting the Peoria Housing Authority to emergency relocate for that family, and they did that. And I actually hand-delivered them a copy for themselves and then a copy for the Peoria Housing Authority. When I went back, good feeling story here, but I went back, the father of the family wanted to meet me away from the family, so I met him out front, and I gave him the letter, and he was just beside himself that the village of Peoria Heights, along with myself, would give them that kind of attention. A low-income family that didn't really mean a whole lot to this community, in his eyes, we'd pay that kind of attention to them to get that family relocated, and that was taken care of. And he actually told them that he didn't want to relocate to Peoria City. He wanted to stay here in Peoria Heights, where he felt that he could be, appropriately taken care of. So, kind of a feel-good story for us. I wanted to share with you guys.
The basement doesn't have a drain?
It did, but it was clogged. There was a lot of issues with that property, yeah.
Well, I also want to point out, this is just one of many stories that I hear, and you know I've been bragging about this program for the last year. This is one of many stories that I hear weekly. Shane's kind of turned into a local celebrity because these renters see him coming. They're like, why aren't you coming to my house? Because, you know, he's got a great rapport with the landlords. He does a great job in follow-up. And I knew this was a good program, but it's exceeded my expectations. In this community, they're very appreciative, and just these stories I hear all the time. And I told Shane it is good to have him here. That's why, backed by popular demand, I wanted to share some of those. And he is making a big difference. And I can't talk him up too much here because, you know, he'll want more money or something. So anyway.
I do say programs are only as good as the personnel that are operating them, and you got a good one right here, so.
I appreciate that. I did have, driving down Illinois, it was while it was still hot, I got flagged down by one of the properties that I dealt with, one of the tenants there. He says, I want to show you something. Actually, I have something for you. Okay, sure. He said, I'll be right back. He runs in his house, and he comes back out. It was a hot day. Cold bottle of water for me and a brownie wrapped up in a napkin. We wanted to make sure you got lunch. You're out here working for us. So I definitely appreciate things like that. I get positive feedback every day, and I hope that some of that trickles back to you guys also. We're doing great things here.
I think it's a great idea. I think you're doing a fabulous job.
Appreciate it.
I like those kind of inputs. I mean, I know you have some bad ones too, but I really like the good ones to show that at least it's working. That's what we want to hear, that this program's working.
He's a coordinator of the program. He's also state certified. He holds certifications that even some of the biggest critics, that until they see his certification sticker in the window, it's very rare. It's a whole different story once they see that. So it's not like we just threw a good employee out into the field to do this job. We made sure he was certified. He holds all those state certifications. And then as far as the PR side, you can't get a better guy. So anyway, I'm done.
Well, and Shane, you're one of many village employees. I'm very proud of you and your work and having you work here.
Excellent. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I have another thing.
Sure,
just
absolutely.
to comment on.
Yeah.
So on your little sheet, I mean, if everybody looks, we're only 9 months into this. And he's expected 267. I mean, we have how many houses? Do you know, Stephanie, off the top of your head?
900.
So we actually sent out the inspection, or the letter just reminding people to sign up for next year. We sent out over 600 letters. There were over 900 properties contained within those 600 letters.
Okay, so over 900 properties. In 9 months, he's only been able to do 267. But look at the accomplishment that he's made so far in 9 months.
Right.
That's huge.
When I go out, when I make contact with I like to call them my friends because that's how we communicate back and forth. I give every one of them my card, and I say, if you ever need anything, please call me. And I couldn't tell you, my phone rings off the hook. People want me to come by just to say hi, to check on them, see how you're doing. Others have small issues that can be taken care of right away. Some are larger. I work with those people, property management companies, the homeowners, whatever the case may be. You know, we get to the bottom of the issue and get them taken care of.
Good job.
I think Shane needs to be on the monthly letter or the podcast or whatever we have.
Oh, I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
That's a good idea. We'll make.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shane.
All right. Thank you very much.
Trustee DeVore, anything else under police?
That is all, Mayor.
Chief Sutton?
No, I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, on to miscellaneous business. Any miscellaneous business?
I have a few things.
Go ahead.
I wanted to just, I didn't have anything else to talk about tonight, so. I wanted to just give an update on some of our past meetings that we've had in October and some really exciting things coming up. First of all, on October 16th, I know I mentioned it at a couple of our other meetings, we had a great turnout for Illinois River Development Coalition meeting on October 16th at the Ivy Club. We had about 25 people there, including the KDB group, including almost 100% buy-in from all of the communities surrounding the river on both sides, from the McCluggage Bridge to Lake Inn. Also, Jason Beverlin from the Nature Conservancy Scenic Byways was there, and Ray Lees was there to give a presentation. So that was very successful. Just to kind of remind you all, the purpose of this is so that as a collective, we can share resources, support one another's communities and festivals, and also work toward economic tourism, agritourism, historic tourism in our area. And one very exciting thing that happened because of that meeting was that the KDB group gave us $25,000 in support of that coalition, and also they are paying for Farnsworth, which is their group who will help with working out a plan and some, I'm not exactly sure in what capacity, but they're a fantastic firm. So that's one thing. Tomorrow evening, Christy Dula is visiting us from Chicago. She's Governor Pritzker's right-hand gal. She works for the DCEO in the Office of Entrepreneurship, Technology, and Economic Development. She's coming down to Peoria to help us work on grants and help us we're seeking, and she'll help us source funding and funding opportunities to help job creation in our area, technology, education, and that type of thing. So we're really excited to host her tomorrow and I think Thursday morning as well. And on Thursday at 1 o'clock, we're meeting with Dave Gobin in Springfield, Illinois, who is really the program manager for the Community Development Block Grant Program. So this would go hand in hand with our initiative with housing and homeowners in our community, and this may be able to be used, these grants, I think they have $500,000 if I'm correct, in finances, about $50,000 per homeowner as long as you qualify for it, and it's an educational meeting to see how we can take advantage of that money. So that would be kind of working simultaneously with this TIF 2 expansion that we're working on. So those are all very exciting things.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mike Vandy, a story broke today. Mike is opening an urban winery here in Peoria Heights. We've been working with him for quite some time, and a story broke today, and I don't think we knew it and you didn't know it, but you want to come forward and tell the board so they hear firsthand about your business and what's happening? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so with all the water talk, I was kind of trying to figure out a way to say turning water into wine. But anywho, yeah, so this has been going on for quite some time now. I've been working with Chief Sutton and Mayor Phelan for a good portion of 4 months, I think. This is a franchise, and so it's an urban winery. So it's a complete winery minus the agricultural, so no vineyards or anything like that. I will ship grapes in, produce and bottle in Peoria Heights. And so when you buy the bottle, it'll say bottled and produced in Peoria Heights. And so there'll be bottling parties. You can actually design your own label. This is a franchise, and so they have all the processes set up, so all I have to do now is learn the process. But I've wanted it in Peoria Heights since I found out about it. I looked elsewhere, ran into some roadblocks, and fortunately it's going to be located above Brienzo's.
Above where?
Above Brienzo's.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Heritage Square. Yeah, so I'm not going to announce a time frame yet because we haven't even put a stud up, but...
And I just want to comment, we have been talking with Mike for the last 4 months, but I think that press release came from corporate because I didn't have time to even update the board because I know you were waiting on a lease.
Yeah.
So, of course, today we got bombarded. But anyway, that came from corporate and not you, I believe.
I didn't realize I was as popular as I was until today. So...
Well, in the time you've spent here in the Heights looking for sites, I think you've fallen in love with the Heights. You're maybe moving here or looking for a home?
Well, I'm going to be spending quite a bit of time here, and I live in Bartonville currently, and that's a 20-minute drive that I don't want to take at 11 o'clock at night leaving work. So
see someone out there who will help you find a home. So
yeah,
very safe community.
It is a very safe community. Yeah. So good water. As long as I don't live on top of the hill, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions for Mr. Vandy?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks,
Mike. Any other miscellaneous?
You know what? I forgot to mention one more thing. I know it's getting really late, but I think I have to mention it at a meeting in order for it to get on the agenda. So for a long time, we've been kicking around the idea of getting together outside of a trustee meeting on a weekend. We could potentially do it at the end of November, maybe in December, possibly even into January, but we probably shouldn't push it back too long. And in order for us to have a conversation about a lot of these different topics and vision for the Heights. I know we have the House of Levine and Farnsworth teams working together on a plan, and I think that we need to have all of our voices heard in the comprehensive housing plan and our vision for the community. So I just want to put that out there, that maybe we should get a date on the calendar for us to
Are
do
you
that.
saying so that you think like Housel Levine and Farnsworth know what we are looking for?
I think yes, both. So there would be parallel tracks. Like, they will come up with a plan as well, but they need our input as to what we're looking for and the direction we want to take. I mean, we are really doing amazing things in the Heights right now, and it's been wonderful that we've had these plans in place, and we've been able to follow them with a hotel study and all these different things. And now I think it would be very beneficial for each one of us as trustees, coming from all these different, areas, to have an open conversation about what's necessary going forward.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, and I'd like to do it, so please help Chief Sutton and I prepare that agenda for that meeting, when and what topics you want to discuss. I think we really need to dig deeper into the policy side of things. We heard a couple of issues tonight that really deserve a lot more time spent on them, so we could do it on a Saturday morning. We could bring some coffee and donuts in and plan on spending the morning. Talk about budget. I think we need to do that. This neighborhood initiative, which is my top priority, and I think a lot of ours, if not all of ours, we need further direction from that. So I know Trustee DeVore is working on that, Trustee Weisenberg's working with Trustee Kazam on some things, and so that's all important to us. So everyone has things on their agendas that are important. So if we could do that, and if you could send some dates on to Stephanie and Dustin or Sarah, and things you'd like to talk about, I think that's a fantastic idea.
I have nothing important on my agenda.
All right, anything else? We would be at the treasurer's report.
For the month of September, in the village-controlled accounts, there was $2,458,440.33. For the same month, in the water-controlled accounts, there was $972,631.26.
You've heard the treasurer's report. I would ask for a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second?
A second. I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Madam Clerk?
Just a second. You guys were too quick. Trustee Carter? Aye. Trustee Myerscough?
Aye.
Trustee Kazam?
Aye.
Trustee Gett?
Aye.
Trustee Weisenberg?
Aye.
Trustee DeVore?
Aye.
All right, that passes. The next item, payment of the bills, actually was placed on the agenda by mistake. We have bills, but we paid them at the last meeting, and there are no bills at this time to pay, so we'll skip over that. We do have an executive session, and I would ask for a motion to go into executive session for ILCS 2C1, personnel, and ILCS 2C11, possible or pending litigation.
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Is there any of the urban winery up there that we can dive into?
I don't want to answer that until I have the advice of counsel, but we will come back only to adjourn and not to conduct any other business. We're going into executive session.